What you are about to watch is the most authentic cinematic vision of the book of Genesis you have ever experienced. This story comes straight from the ancient Hebrew scroll, keeping the complex, raw mystery of the text without offering any easy answers. Get ready to experience the entire story of creation, told exactly as written, sacred, raw, and completely unlike anything you have seen before. This is the untold story of Genesis. Genesis, the movie. In the silence before time, Elohim called the beginning forth, heavens arching over, a formless earth hidden in deep darkness. The spirit of Elohim hovered like a tremor above shoreless waters, a silent breath poised over the great abyss. Then the voice broke the silence. Let light exist. And dawn burst from nothing. Elohim saw that the light was good, separating brightness from the shadowed deep. He called the light day, and the darkness night. As evening became morning, day one. Again the command came, let there be a dome, and the sky unfurled, a vast canopy splitting the great waters. The deep parted some below into oceans, some above into clouds divided by the wide sweep of the sky. Elohim named this vast dome heaven, a protective shield over the rising world. Evening faded. Morning returned, a steady rhythm locking into place the second day, and the blue dome waited, watching for the ground to appear. Let the waters under heaven gather, and the oceans pulled back in perfect harmony. Dry land pushed up from the dark depths, its rugged peaks called earth, the vast gathered pools called seas. Elohim saw that it was good, and commanded the soil to burst with life. Green plants sprouted carrying their own seeds, and orchards bent heavy with fruit. Evening and morning wove together once more the third day. Let there be lights in the sky to serve as celestial signs, marking seasons, passing days, and turning years. The massive sun ruled the day. The pale moon guarded the night, while stars scattered like dust across the darkness. Elohim set them high above to pour light onto the world, governing every hour and splitting the light from the shadow. He saw, and it was good, a fiery clock carved directly into the cosmos. Evening bled into morning the fourth day. Let the oceans teem with life, and the deep stirred as massive creatures turned their huge shapes through glowing currents. Feathered wings beat against the blue, birds soaring high across the heavens, every creature finding its perfect place. Elohim blessed them. Multiply and grow. Fill the oceans and let the skies overflow with life. Scales gleamed, feathers ruffled, and the silent earth finally found its voice. Evening settled, morning answered the fifth day. Let the ground produce living things, and it did. Grazing herds, creeping things, and the powerful beasts of the wild, each after its own kind. Elohim saw it was good, and then a quiet counsel spoke. Let us make humanity in our own image, reflecting our likeness. So Elohim formed mankind in his image. In the very image of Elohim, he created them. Male and female, he made them. He gave them stewardship over sea and sky, over every animal and field, ruling over every creature moving upon the earth. Elohim blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and conquer it, holding dominion with deep care over everything I created. Look, he said, I have given you every seed-bearing plant across the face of the earth, and every tree yielding seed inside its fruit for your food. To the beasts, the birds, and to everything crawling upon the ground containing a living soul, he gave green plants for nourishment, and the earth responded with lush meadows, deep groves, leaves and grain for sustenance, laid out like a great table set for every breathing thing. Elohim surveyed all he made, wing and hoof, seed and soul, and indeed very good. As evening yielded to morning, the work of 6 days settled into a profound, sacred rest. In this way the heavens and the earth were completed, standing in perfect, beautiful order. On the seventh day Elohim ceased his labor, resting from all the vast work he had done. He blessed this seventh day, setting it apart as holy ground, because on it he rested from the surge of creation. This is the story of the cosmos, sealed on the day Yahweh Elohim brought forth the earth and sky. No wild shrubs had broken through the dry soil, no crops had sprouted, because Yahweh Elohim had not yet sent rain, and no human existed to work the ground. Yet a heavy mist rose up, watering the face of the earth with hidden streams. Then Yahweh Elohim leaned down to the clay, shaping the human from the dust of the ground. Into his nostrils he breathed the breath of life. And that cold dust transformed into a living soul standing upright before his Maker. Yahweh Elohim planted a sacred garden eastward in Eden, placing the man within its cool shade. He caused every tree to grow from the ground, beautiful to look at, and nourishing to eat. With the tree of life in the center alongside the tree of knowledge of good and evil, a river surged out from Eden to water the garden, dividing into 4 great streams, Pishon winding through Havilah rich with gold and onyx, and Gihon flowing through the land of Cush, Hiddekel running east of Ashur, and the mighty Euphrates flowing in its broad course. Yahweh Elohim placed the man in this Garden of Eden to cultivate it and protect it. He commanded the man, saying, "You are free to eat from any tree in this garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because on the day you eat from it, you will surely die." Then Yahweh Elohim declared, "It is not good for the man to live alone. I will make a companion suited for him." So he brought every wild beast and bird of the sky before the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man spoke became its name. But still no companion was found who could truly match him. So Yahweh Elohim cast a deep, heavy slumber upon the man. And while he slept, he took a portion from his side, sealing the flesh back over the wound. From that side he fashioned a woman and presented her to the man. The man exclaimed finally, "This is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. This is why a man leaves his father and his mother to unite with his wife, and they become one flesh." Both the man and his wife were naked, yet they felt no shame, wrapped in pure innocence. Now the serpent, far more cunning than any other wild animal Yahweh Elohim had made, slipped through the branches, its voice whispering smooth and deceptive, approached the woman asking, "Did Elohim really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman answered, her gaze steady yet hesitant, "We may eat the fruit from the trees here, but concerning the tree in the very center of the garden, Elohim warned you must not. Do not eat or even touch it, or you will die." Then the serpent whispered, cold as shadow, "You will not die. God knows that the moment you eat from this tree, your eyes will open. You will become like God, deciding what is good and evil." She stared at the tree. Its fruit gleamed with ancient promise, beautiful to behold, awakening a desperate hunger for wisdom. She reached out and plucked it, and tasted the fruit. She shared it with her husband, and he ate too. Instantly their eyes were opened. Shame took hold. They saw their nakedness and sewed fig leaves, together making frail masks to hide behind. Then they heard the footsteps of the Creator, walking through the garden in the cool evening breeze. Terrified, they hid deep among the trees. "Where are you called the Creator?" The man replied, "I heard you walking in the garden, and I was afraid because of my nakedness, so I hid." "Who told you that you were naked?" asked them voice. "Have you eaten from the very tree I commanded you not to touch?" The man deflected. "The woman you put here with me, she gave me the fruit and I ate." The Creator turned to the woman demanding, "What is this that you have done?" And she whispered, "The serpent tricked me, so I ate." Then the Creator spoke to the snake. "Because you have done this, you are cursed. Above all wild beasts, you will crawl on your belly and eat dust for all the days of your life. I will spark hostility between you and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring. He will crush your head while you bruise his heel." To the woman he declared, "I will multiply your labor and make your childbearing painful. In deep pain and struggle, you will bring forth new life. Your desire will pull toward your husband, yet he will dominate you." To the man he said, "Because you chose to follow your wife and ate from the forbidden tree of which I said, you must not eat. Cursed is the earth because of your choice. Through hard labor, you will survive all the days of your life. Thorns and briars it will yield for you. By the sweat of your brow you will grind for food until you return to the earth, for from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will go. The man named his companion Eve because she would become the mother of all humanity. Out of compassion, the Creator crafted garments of leather to clothe their vulnerability. Then the Creator said, "Look, mankind has become like one of us, defining good and evil. Now, we must ensure they do not reach out to steal eternal life, eating and existing forever." So the Creator banished them from the paradise of Eden, condemning them to till the harsh ground from which they came. East of the garden, guardians stood watch, with a spinning sword of fire blocking the path back to the tree of eternal life. In the wilderness, Adam lay with his wife Eve. She conceived and bore a son, saying, "With the help of the Lord I have brought forth a man." Next his brother Abel was born. Abel became a shepherd while Cain farmed the soil. In time, Cain brought an offering to the Lord, presenting the raw harvest of his heavy labor. Abel offered the firstborn from his flock, giving his very best. The Creator looked with favor on Abel and his sacrifice, but for Cain and his offering, there was no acceptance. Cain grew deeply bitter, his face dark with rage. The Creator asked him, "Why are you so angry? Why is your spirit so broken? If you choose what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you refuse, sin crouches at your door. It wants to master you, but you must conquer it." Instead of listening, Cain confronted his brother Abel. Out in the open field, rage boiled over, and he struck his brother down. Abel's blood soaked into the soil, leaving a heavy, haunting silence over the earth. Then the Creator confronted Cain, asking, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain lied, saying, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord demanded, "What have you done? Your brother's spilled blood cries out to me from the ground. You are now cursed by the very earth that swallowed your brothers. Blood from your hands. When you try to till the soil, it will never give you its harvest. You will roam the earth as a restless fugitive." Cain cried out, "My punishment is too heavy to bear. Today you banish me from this land, hidden from your presence, doomed to wander as a restless outcast, and anyone who crosses my path will try to kill me." But the Creator replied, "No. If anyone kills Cain, they will suffer 7 times the vengeance." So he placed a protective mark on Cain, ensuring no traveler would strike him down. Cain left the divine presence, settling in the desolate land of Nod, east of Eden. There Cain's wife gave birth to Enoch, and Cain built a city, naming it after his child. Enoch fathered Irad, who fathered Mehujael. Then came Methushael, and finally Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, Ada and Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal, ancestor of nomadic shepherds who raised livestock, and his brother Jubal, the first of all who play stringed instruments and flutes. Zillah gave birth to Tubal-Cain, a master metalworker of bronze and iron, and his sister Naamah. One day Lamech bragged to his wives Ada and Zillah, "Listen to me. I killed a man just for bruising me, a young man for hitting me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times." Back in Eden's shadow, Adam lay with his wife again. She bore a son named Seth. She declared, "God has granted me another child to replace Abel, whom Cain murdered." In time, Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. Then people first began to worship and call upon the Lord. This is the written record of Adam's descendants, when God first created humanity. He made them in his own likeness, creating them male and female. He blessed them, and on that very day he named them mankind. When Adam had lived long enough, he fathered a son in his own likeness, naming him Seth. After Seth's birth, Adam lived many years fathering other sons and daughters, living for a total of 930 years before he passed away. Seth lived on to father Enosh, raising many more sons and daughters in his lifetime, until his lifespan reached 912 years. And then he died. Enosh lived long enough to father Canaan. His own days were also many, totaling 905 years before he died. Canaan fathered Mahalalel, and lived for a total of 910 years before dying. Mahalalel fathered Jared, living 895 years in all, and then he died. Jared fathered Enoch, and his own life stretched to 962 years before ending. Yet Enoch was different. At 165, he fathered Methuselah, and after that, walked closely with God. He lived in deep harmony with the Creator, his life lasting 365 years. Then he vanished because God simply took him away. Methuselah lived on fathering Lamech. His days spanned 969 years, the longest lifetime recorded. Then he died. Lamech fathered a son and named him Noah, saying, "This boy will bring us relief from our painful labor, from the bitter struggle of our hands against the soil Yahweh cursed." Lamech lived 777 years. Then Lamech died. At 500 years old, Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So Adam's bloodline marched forward through time from father to son, carrying both blessing and death until hope was born with Noah. As humanity began to multiply across the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of Elohim, the mysterious Benai Elohim, looked down and saw their beauty taking any woman they chose as wives. Their children became the mighty ones of old legendary figures of ancient renown. But Yahweh warned that his spirit would not remain in humanity forever, because they are mortal flesh. Their lifespan will be 120 years, and Yahweh looked upon them, earth, and saw its decay. Every human heart was deeply corrupted, thinking only of wickedness all day long. Violence consumed the world, and blood stained the earth. Yahweh regretted creating humanity on the earth, and deep grief broke his heart. He declared that he would wipe out mankind along with every beast, crawling creature, and bird of the air, saying, "I regret making them." Yet Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. This is the history of Noah. He was a righteous man, blameless in his time, who walked closely with Elohim. He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But the earth grew corrupt before Elohim, as humanity had corrupted its path. Yahweh Elohim looked down and saw a world filled with violence. So Yahweh told Noah, "The end of all living things has come before me, because the earth is choked with their violence. Look, I am about to destroy them along with the earth. Build yourself an ark of gopher wood with rooms, sealing it inside and out with pitch. Make it 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Construct a lower second and third deck, placing a door in its side. Leave an opening 1 cubit from the top. I'm going to bring a great flood of water to destroy all living flesh under heaven that has the breath of life. Every creature on earth will perish, but I will make my covenant with you. Enter the ark with your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives. You must bring 2 of every kind of living creature into the ark, a male and a female to keep them alive. Bring birds of every kind, beasts of every kind, and crawling creatures of every kind, 2 of. Each will come to seek refuge. Store up enough food to feed everyone." And Noah did everything Yahweh Elohim commanded. He did exactly as he was told. Then Yahweh said to Noah, "Enter the ark, you and your entire family, for I have found you righteous in this generation. Take 7 pairs of every clean animal, and of the unclean animals take only 1 pair male and female. Take 7 pairs of the birds of the air to keep their species alive on earth. In 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, wiping out every living creature I have made from the face of the earth." Noah did everything that Yahweh Elohim commanded. He was 600 years old when the floodwaters hit the earth. Noah entered the ark with his wife and his 3 sons, and his sons' wives escaping the rising floodwaters. Clean and unclean beasts, birds, and every crawling creature came to him in pairs, male and female, just as Elohim commanded. 7 days later, the ancient fountains of the deep burst open, and the floodgates of, why does the world collapse when we lose our way? In Noah's 600th year, the skies broke. On the 27th day, the great deluge began. Rain crashed down for 40 straight days and 40 nights, while Noah and his family fled the rising chaos and entered the wooden ark. They brought every living creature according to its kind, wild beasts and domestic animals alike, crawling insects and birds of every wing. Every breathing soul entered this floating sanctuary, male and female, just as Elohim commanded. Then Yahweh shut the heavy door behind them. For 40 days the waters surged, lifting the vessel high above the drowning earth. The floods swelled with absolute fury, until even the tallest mountains under heaven were swallowed. Covered completely, the waters rose 15 cubits higher, burying the highest peaks beneath the currents. Every living thing perished, birds, beasts, and humans, everything carrying the fragile breath of life. On dry ground, only Noah was left, surviving the storm of exile inside the wooden ark, and the dark waters ruled over the earth for 150 days. But Elohim remembered Noah and all the wild creatures trapped inside with him. He sent a great wind over the earth, causing the waters to retreat. The ancient depths were sealed. The windows of heaven closed, and the rain stopped. The vast waters ebbed and flowed, steadily drying until after 150 days, the flood finally abated. In the 7th month, on the 27th day, the vessel rested on the mountains of Ararat. The waters kept falling until the 10th month, on the very first day. The mountaintops appeared like islands rising from a dead world. After 40 long days, Noah opened a small window and released a raven. It flew back and forth, waiting for the land to dry. Then he sent out a dove to search for dry ground, but she found no place to land, for the deep water remained, and she returned to the vessel. Noah reached out his hand and brought the gentle bird back inside. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again. By evening, she returned, carrying a freshly plucked olive leaf in her beak. Noah knew the waters were gone. He waited 7 more days and released her once again. But this time, she never returned. In Noah's 601st year, on the very first day of the year, the floodwaters vanished. Noah pulled back the roof of the ark and looked out, and saw that the ground was completely dry. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth lay solid beneath the sun. Then Yahweh spoke to Noah, calling him to leave the ark with his wife, his sons and their wives. Bring out every living creature with you, every beast, bird, and crawling thing, so they can swarm the earth. Be fruitful and multiply. So Noah stepped out with his family, and all the animals, each according to its kind. Noah built an altar to Yahweh, choosing from the clean animals and birds, offering them as a sacrifice on the stones. Yahweh smelled the sweet fragrance and made a promise. I will never again curse the earth because of humanity, even though their hearts lean toward darkness from youth. Never again will I destroy every living thing as I have, while the earth remains. Planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, will never cease. Then Elohim blessed Noah and his sons, telling them to be fruitful and multiply, to fill the earth and conquer it. Now fear and dread of you will grip every wild beast, every bird in the sky, every crawling thing, and all the fish in the deep. I deliver them into your hands. Every moving creature shall now be food for you, just like the green plants I gave you. But you must never eat meat with its lifeblood inside. And Elohim warned them solemnly, I will demand a strict reckoning for your lifeblood from every... Why does the Creator demand a reckoning for spilled blood from both beast and man? Is murder more than just a crime? To spill blood is to destroy the divine image we carry. Whoever kills must pay with their own life. He said, Go now, multiply, fill the earth, and reclaim your lost dominion. Then God spoke to Noah and his sons, offering a sacred bond to guide their wounded souls, a promise extending to your future descendants and every living creature that survived the storm alongside you, every beast of the field. Never again will rising waters wash away the entire human family. No cataclysm will ever again wipe out our fragile home. The Creator declared, This is the quiet symbol of the sacred bond between me and all life. I have hung my bow in the clouds, a bridge of light, spanning the divide between heaven and earth. When dark storms gather and the rainbow shines through, I will remember my sacred promise to you and every living creature. Never again will the oceans swell into an all-consuming flood of destruction. When the bow appears, I will look upon it to honor our eternal covenant, the unbreakable bond between Creator and creation. Then God spoke once more to Noah. This radiant ark is the seal of the pledge I make with all living things. Now the sons who stepped from the ark to rebuild the world were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan, and from these three humanity spread. Noah, a tiller of the earth, planted a vineyard. But after drinking the wine, he lay exposed and unconscious inside his tent. Ham, Canaan's father, looked upon his father's vulnerability and went outside to gossip to his brothers. But Shem and Japheth took a cloak, draped it over their shoulders, and walking backward, covered their sleeping father, refusing to look upon his exposed shame. When Noah woke from his stupor and realized what his youngest son had done, he declared, "Cursed be Canaan. He shall be the lowest of servants to his own brothers. Blessed be Yahweh, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God expand Japheth. Let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan serve him." Noah lived for another 350 years after the deluge. His days totaled 950 years. And then he passed away. This is the sprawling chronicle of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the children born after the deluge, whose descendants eventually populated the entire known world. Japheth's line brought forth Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. Gomer fathered Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. From Javan's branch came Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Rodanim. From these maritime tribes began to settle, their vast territories divided by clan, unique language, and rising nation. Ham's descendants were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Cush fathered Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Rama, and Sabteka. And Rama fathered Sheba and Dedan. From Cush arose Nimrod, the world's very first mighty king on the earth. He was a fierce hunter before Yahweh, sparking the legendary proverb, even like Nimrod, a fierce hunter before Yahweh. The cradles of his empire were Babylon, Erech Akkad, and Calneh deep in Shinar. From that ground Asshur marched out to build Nineveh, Rehoboth Ir Calah, and Resen, the grand city standing between Nineveh and Calah. Mitzrayim was the father of Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Pathrusim, and Casluhim, from whom the Philistines emerged alongside the Caphtorim. Canaan's firstborn son was Sidon, then Heth, followed by the Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, and Sinites, the Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. Gradually, these Canaanite clans began to disperse, marking their territory from Sidon toward Gerar all the way to Gaza, then pushing east toward Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, ending at Lasha. These were Ham's nations divided by tongue and land, a mirror of the fractured identities we bear today. What if the lineage of Shem, Japheth's brother and father of Eber, is actually a map of our souls? His line split into 5 ancient tribes: Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. And Aram fathered Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Then Arphaxad fathered Shelah, who begot Eber. To Eber 2 sons were born. The first was named Peleg, because during his lifetime the world itself fractured. His brother was Joktan, who fathered Almodad, Shelef, and Hazarmaveth. Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan, settling the eastern highlands from Mesha all the way to Sephir. These were the descendants of Shem, mapped by clan, by language, by territory, and nation. These are the lost families descended from Noah, tracked through their ancient generations, organized by nation. From this bloodline, humanity scattered across the earth after the Great Flood. Back then, the entire world spoke a single, unified language. Traveling toward the east, they discovered a massive valley in Shinar and built their home. Then they whispered to each other, "Let us bake clay bricks until they are hard." Man-made brick replaced stone and tar served as mortar. They declared, "Let us construct a great city with a monument reaching into the very heavens. We will secure our own legacy so we are never lost or scattered across this silent earth. But God came down to inspect the city and the massive monument these mortal hands were shaping. And the Lord observed they are a single tribe with one voice. This is only their starting point. Soon, absolutely nothing they dream of doing will be out of their reach. We must go down and scramble their words so they can no longer understand each other. In an instant, God dispersed them from that place, driving them across the globe, and their grand construction halted. That unfinished ruin was named Babel because there the Creator shattered the common tongue of humanity, scattering them to the far corners of the wilderness. This is the hidden line of Shem. 2 years after the waters receded, Shem was 100 when he fathered Arphaxad. He walked this earth 500 years longer, raising more sons and daughters. Arphaxad begot Canaan. Canaan begot Shelah, and Shelah begot Eber. To Eber 2 sons were born, one named Peleg, because during his brief lifetime the ancient world was torn apart, and his brother Joktan. Down through their line emerged Reu, Serug, Nahor, and Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran fathered Lot. But Haran died before his father Terah, resting forever in Ur of the Chaldeans, his birthplace. Then Abram and Nahor took wives. The woman Abram married was named Sarai, and Nahor married a woman named Milcah, who was Haran's daughter-sister to Iscah. But Sarai carried a quiet grief, remaining barren. So Terah gathered his son Abram, his grandson Lot, and his daughter-in-law Sarai. Together they departed the advanced streets of Ur, heading for Canaan. Yet when they reached the city of Haran, they stalled and settled. Terah lived 205 years before dying in that halfway place. Then a quiet voice called to Abram, "Leave your homeland, your close relatives, and your father's house, and journey to an unknown land I will reveal. I will shape you into a great dynasty and bless you. I will make your name echo through history, and you will become a source of profound blessing. I will defend you from your enemies, and through your faith, every family on earth will find hope." With nothing but a promise, Abram departed, bringing Lot along. He was 75 years old when he finally walked away from Haran, taking his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot, along with every single possession and servant they had accumulated. Into the unknown, they marched toward Canaan. When they crossed the border, Abram traveled deep into the territory, reaching Shechem, stopping near the sacred oak tree. Back then, hostile tribes ruled over that region. In that vulnerable moment, God appeared to Abram, promising to give this entire land to his descendants. He built an altar there, mapping his heart to the voice guiding him. Why do we flee our true call? He climbed east of Bethel, facing the west, and ruin on the east. Raising a tent, he carved an altar to God, crying out to the divine. Yet his restless soul kept wandering, drifting south in slow, weary stages. Then a severe famine choked the land. Terrified, he fled to Egypt to escape the hunger, for the drought was relentless. Nearing the foreign borders, he whispered to his wife, "I know how beautiful you are. When those people look at you, they will surely say, 'This is his wife.' They will murder me and keep you alive. Please tell them you are my sister, so they treat me kindly for your sake and save my life from their blades." Crossing into Egypt, his fears came true. The rulers noticed her breathtaking, dangerous grace. Pharaoh's ministers lavished praises on her, leading her straight into the palace gates to buy her husband's safety. The man received vast wealth, sheep, oxen, beasts of burden, and endless servants. But a silent curse struck the king. Plagues tore through his home because of this stolen wife. The trembling king confronted the deceiver, crying, "What misery have you brought upon my kingdom? Why hide the truth that she is your wife? You lied to me calling her your sister, and let me claim her. Here is your wife. Take her and flee," the king commanded, and they banished him. He fled into the desert with his family and his nephew Lot. So they climbed back toward the southern wastes, loaded with the weight of their stolen fortunes. They possessed endless herds, heavy silver and gold. Yet he wandered like a ghost, returning at last to the wind-swept ridge of Bethel, where his journey had first begun. There, beside the cold, silent stones of his old altar, he prayed once more. His nephew Lot also held vast herds, but the dry soil could no longer nourish both families. Their material abundance had become a wall, making unity impossible between them. Bitter anger erupted among their shepherds, a silent war of survival on the plains, while hostile native tribes watched their growing weakness from the shadows. The elder patriarch pleaded, "Let us not destroy ourselves with this petty division, for we share the same blood. Look at the horizon. We must go separate ways. If you choose the left, I will take the right. Whichever path you walk, I will take the other." Staring out, his companion saw the lush green valleys of the Jordan glittering in the sun, like a lost paradise mimicking the seductive wealth of Egypt. Tempted, he chose that fertile valley and headed east. In that single decision, they parted, severing their shared destiny. One stayed in the rugged hills of faith, while the other chased comfort down into the lowlands, drawing closer to Sodom, a shadow world of decay and spiritual corruption. Once his companion had gone, a quiet voice echoed in the silence. "Look up from where you stand. Gaze to the north, south, east, and west. Every endless horizon you see, I promise, to your lineage forever. I will multiply your children like the heavy dust of the ground, an infinite sea of souls that no mortal mind could ever hope to measure. Stand up and explore the wide borders of this earth, for it belongs to you." So he packed his tents and journeyed to the ancient groves of Mamre, resting at Hebron, raising another sacred altar. During the reign of Amraphel of Shinar, Arioch of Elasar, and Kedor Laomer of Elam, with title of Goim, they marched to crush Bera of Sodom and Birsha of Gomorrah, striking the kings of Admah, Zeboim, and the small valley of Bela, known as Zoar. 5 kings clashed with 4 in the valley near the Salt Sea. For 12 long years they served Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. His armies swept the land, mirroring the wars we still fight within. What if our ancient battles are internal? They crushed the Rephaim, Zuzim, and Horites to Seir, turning back to smite the Amalekites and Amorites at Hazezon Tamar. Then the fearful kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, and Admah, Zeboim, and Bela marched to battle. But the valley of Siddim was full of treacherous tar pits. The kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled. Some fell into those dark pits, while others escaped to the hills. The invaders plundered all the riches of Sodom and Gomorrah, taking all their food and dragging away Lot, Abram's own kinsman who lived in Sodom, along with all his worldly possessions. A lone survivor escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, who lived among the sacred oaks of Mamre, allied with Eshcol and Aner. When Abram heard his close kinsman was taken captive, he knew, mustered 318 trained men from his household, pursuing the raiders all the way to Dan. By night he split his forces, crushed his foes, and chased them to Hobah, north of Damascus. He reclaimed all the plundered goods, bringing back Lot his possessions, the women, and all the captives. As Abram returned in triumph, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the Shavah Valley, also called the King's Valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of El Elyon, brought out sacred bread and wine. He blessed Abram, saying, "Blessed be Abram by El Elyon, creator of heaven and earth, and praised be El Elyon, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. Then the king of Sodom proposed, "Give me the people, but keep all the goods for yourself." But Abram answered, "I raise my hand to Yahweh El Elyon, maker of heaven and earth, swearing I will not take a thread or a sandal strap of yours, lest you should claim I made Abram rich. I want nothing except what my young men have already eaten, and the share for Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, who fought beside me. Let them take theirs." After these events, the word of Yahweh came to Abram in a quiet vision. "Do not fear, Abram. I am your protective shield and your exceedingly great reward." But Abram lamented, "Sovereign Lord Yahweh, what can you give me? I remain childless, and the heir of my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. You have given me no children, and so a servant born in my home will inherit everything. Then Yahweh spoke directly to him. This man will not be your heir. A son of your own flesh and blood will be your heir. Yahweh brought him outside into the deep night and said, Look toward the heavens and count the stars, if you can. That is how vast your offspring will be. Abram believed Yahweh, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Yahweh declared, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your inheritance. Abram asked, Sovereign Lord, how can I be certain I will actually possess it? Yahweh answered, Bring me a heifer 3 years old, a goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Abram brought for them all, split the animals in half, and laid each piece opposite the other, though the birds he did not divide. Dark birds of prey swooped down upon the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, a heavy sleep fell upon Abram, and a terrifying deep darkness overcame him. Yahweh warned him, Know this for certain. Your descendants will be strangers in a land not their own, enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. But I will judge the nation they serve, and afterward they will leave with great wealth. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace, buried at a ripe old age. In the 4th generation your descendants will return here because the sins of the Amorites have not yet run their full course. Darkness fell, and the night grew deep. Behold, a smoking firepot and a blazing torch passed between the divided pieces. On that very day, Yahweh sealed a covenant with Abram, declaring, To your descendants I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great Euphrates River, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, and Hittites, and Jebusites. This ancient, terrifying covenant is actually a map for your own soul today. Why do we fear emptiness? Sarai, Abram's wife, could bear no children, but she owned an Egyptian servant named Hagar. In her desperation, Sarai spoke to Abram, See how God has closed my womb. Go sleep with my servant. Maybe I can build a family through her. And Abram listened to his wife's voice. After 10 long years in Canaan, Sarai took Hagar the Egyptian and offered her to Abram as a wife. He slept with her, she conceived, and realizing she was pregnant, she looked at her mistress with contempt. So Sarai cried out to Abram, This suffering is your fault. I handed my servant to you, and now that she is pregnant, she treats me with disdain. Let God judge between us. Abram replied, Look, your servant is in your hands. Deal with her as you see fit. Then Sarai mistreated her so bitterly that Hagar fled deep into the wilderness. An angel of God tracked her down, finding her beside a desert spring along the road to Shur. He asked Hagar, Sarai's servant, Where do you come from, and where are you headed? She answered, I am running from my mistress, Sarai. The angel of God commanded her, Go back to your mistress and submit to her authority. I will multiply your descendants until they are too many to count. Look, you are with child and will bear a son. You must name him Ishmael, because God has heard your painful cry. He will be a wild man fighting everyone, and everyone fighting him. He will live in open defiance of all his relatives. Hagar gave a name to the Lord who spoke. You are the God who sees me, she said. Have I really survived seeing the one who watches over me? So the well was named, the well of the living one who sees me. It lies between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave birth to Abram's son, and he named the boy she bore Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar gave birth to his son. When Abram reached 99 years of age, the Lord appeared to him, saying, I am God Almighty. Walk in my presence and live a blameless life. Will seal my covenant with you and make your family grow beyond measure. Abram bowed face down, and God spoke to him, saying, Look, this is my promise. You will become the father of many nations. Your name will no longer be Abram, but you will be called Abraham, for I have made you the father of many nations. I will make you incredibly fruitful. Nations and kings will descend from you. I will establish my covenant with you and your descendants for generations to come, an eternal bond to be your God and to your children. I will give you and your descendants this land of your exile, the entire land of Canaan as an everlasting home, and I will be their God. God continued, as for you, you must keep this covenant, both you and your future descendants, generation after generation. This is the pact you must keep. Every male must be circumcised. You must undergo this physical cut and let it serve as a clear reminder of the sacred bond between us. Every infant boy who is 8 days old must be circumcised throughout your lineage, whether born under your roof or purchased with silver from an outsider. This mark in your flesh will show an eternal covenant. But any uncircumcised man will be exiled from his community, for he has broken our agreement. God added, as for your wife Sarai, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name is now Sarah. I will bless her and grant you a son through her. She will mother great nations, and kings of empires will arise from her. Abraham fell face down, laughing at the impossible. A doubt we still hold. When hope is dead, can life still begin? Can a 90-year-old woman really bring forth life? Abraham begged God to let his current son Ishmael suffice instead. But the divine demands the impossible. Your wife Sarah will bear a son named Isaac. Through him, an eternal bond is forged. But your cry for Ishmael is still heard. He will be blessed, growing into a vast lineage of strength and abundance. He will father 12 great leaders, forming a mighty nation. Yet my deepest promise remains, bound to Isaac, whom Sarah will bring into the world at this time next year. As the divine voice faded, the vision dissolved. Abraham acted instantly, gathering his young son and his entire household, every man and boy preparing them to receive the painful mark of covenant. That very day they shed blood in obedience. The patriarch himself was 99 years old when he bore the mark, and his son Ishmael was 13. That same day, every male in his household was initiated into this difficult path of devotion. Later, the Lord appeared under the ancient oaks of Mamre, while Abraham rested in his tent's shadow during the midday heat. Looking up, he spotted 3 mysterious travelers standing nearby. Without hesitation, he rushed out to welcome them, prostrating himself in the dust. My Lord, if I have found grace in your eyes, do not pass by your humble servant. Let cool water be brought to wash your feet, then rest under the shade. Let me bring food to restore your strength before you continue your journey. They replied, do as you have offered. Abraham hurried to Sarah. Quickly prepare fine flour and bake fresh bread. Then he selected a choice calf from the herd, preparing it with fresh curds and rich milk. He stood silently by, watching them eat beneath the shade. They asked him, where is your wife Sarah? Inside the tent, he replied. Then the traveler spoke with divine authority. I will return to you when life begins anew, and your wife Sarah will have a son. Sarah was listening at the doorway. Both were withered by time, and her body was long past childbearing. She laughed quietly. Can a worn-out woman like me still feel joy with an old husband? But the Lord asked Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? Why does she doubt she can give birth? At her age, is anything too hard for God? At the set time, I will return, and Sarah will have her child. Afraid, Sarah lied, saying she did not laugh, but he insisted, no, you did. They set off looking toward the corrupt city of Sodom. As Abraham walked along, the Lord mused, should I keep my plans secret from Abraham, seeing he is destined to become a powerful, massive nation and a source of blessing for all people I have chosen him to guide, his children to walk in the way of truth, doing what is right and just. The Lord continued, the dark wailing from Sodom and Gomorrah is deafening, their corruption absolute. I must descend to see if their depravity matches the terrible cries reaching my ears. The travelers departed, but the Lord lingered. Abraham stepped forward, burdened with worry, and asked, will you destroy the innocent along with the guilty? What if 50 good people remain in that doomed city? Will you not forgive the place for them? Surely the judge of all the earth acts justly. The Lord responded, if I find 50 righteous souls, I will spare the entire region for their sake. Abraham pushed, further testing the boundary. What if there are only 45? God replied, I will not destroy it for 45. But Abraham spoke once more. What if only 40 remain? For the sake of those 40, I will hold back destruction. Abraham pleaded, Please do not be angry, but what if only 30 are there? He replied, I will not act if 30 are there. Again, Abraham braced himself to push the limit. What if there are only 20? The Lord answered, I will spare it for those 20. Finally, Abraham pleaded, Please do not be angry. Let me ask just one more time. What if 10 are found? Yahweh replied, For the sake of those 10, I will spare it. As Yahweh vanished into the quiet expanse, Abraham turned back, carrying the heavy weight of silence. At twilight, 2 shadowy figures crossed into Sodom. Lot sat waiting in the dark archway. Spotting them, he bowed to the earth, pleading, Come inside, my lords. Find safety in my home. Rest, wash your feet, and leave at dawn. But the strangers refused, shaking their hands. We will stay in the open square. But Lot begged them, dreading what the darkness held. Reluctantly, they entered. He prepared a hasty feast, baking flatbread, and they ate in the shadows. Before night settled, the town erupted. Men of all ages surrounded the house, a hungry mob. They yelled through the walls, Where are your guests? Send them out. We want to know them. Lot stepped outside, locking the door behind him, begging, Do not do this evil, my brothers. I have 2 daughters who have never known a man. Take them out. Instead, do as you please. But do nothing to these men. They have sought refuge under the shadow of my roof. The crowd surged, yelling, Get out of the way! You are a foreigner playing our judge! We will destroy you before we destroy them. They charged, trying to smash the heavy door. Instantly, the visitors reached out, dragged Lot inside, and barred the entrance shut. They struck the mob outside with sudden blindness, leaving them to crawl blindly along the stone walls. Then they told Lot, Gather your family and leave. Do you have anyone else here? We are about to lay waste to this city. The outcry reaching Yahweh is deafening, and he sent us to end it. Lot tried to warn his sons-in-law, but they laughed. At daybreak, the angels hurried him, saying, Take your family and run before this ruin consumes you. Yet Lot hesitated. So they grabbed him, his wife, and his daughters by their trembling hands. Led by Yahweh's deep mercy, they pulled them out, placing them safely beyond the walls. Run for your life. Never look back, and never stop in the valley. Flee to the hills before you are swept away. Lot begged for the tiny town of Zoar, and his plea was granted. The sun rose as Lot reached safety. Then the Lord rained fire and sulfur down upon Sodom and Gomorrah straight from the heavens. He wiped out those cities, the entire plain and everyone living there, even the plants in the fields. But Lot's wife looked back, and she froze into a pillar of salt. At dawn, Abraham returned to the exact spot where he had stood before the Lord. Staring out toward the ruined cities, he watched thick smoke billow from the earth like a massive furnace. Yet God remembered Abraham rescuing Lot from the heart of the cataclysm. Too terrified to stay in Zoar, Lot fled to the mountains, living in a dark cave with his daughters. The older sister whispered to the younger, Our father is aging, and there are no men left for us. Let us get him drunk on wine, so we can sleep with him, keeping our family line alive. That night she went to him, and in his stupor, he never knew when she lay down or when she left. The following night, the younger sister did the same. So both daughters became pregnant by their own father. The older sister had a son named Moab, meaning, from my father. He became ancestor of the Moabites. The younger sister also bore a son, naming him Ben-Ami, meaning son of my people. He became the father of the Ammonites, and both nations survived for generations. Abraham traveled south into the desert wilderness of the Negev, settling between Kadesh and Shur. While staying in the territory of Gerar, Abraham claimed that Sarah was his sister. Hearing this, Abimelech the king of Gerar sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream during the night, warning him, Look, you are as good as dead because of the woman you took. She is married to another." Now Abimelech had not touched her, so he cried out, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent? Would you destroy an innocent soul?" He claimed she was his sister, and she said the same. He told me she was his sister. I acted with a clear conscience and completely clean hands. God spoke to him in the dream, saying, "I know you acted with a pure heart. That is why I kept you from crossing the line against me. I held you back from touching her. Now return his wife to him, for he is a prophet. He will pray for your life, and you will survive. But if you refuse to return her, be certain that you will die along with everyone in your household." Abimelech woke up at dawn, gathered all his officials, and told them everything. Deep dread gripped them all. He summoned Abraham and demanded, "What have you done to us? How did I wrong you to bring such massive guilt upon my kingdom? You have treated me in ways no one ever should. These actions are unacceptable. Tell me what was on your mind that drove you to do this." Abraham answered, "I honestly believed there was no respect for God in this territory, and that you would murder me to take my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, my father's daughter, though we had different mothers. And she eventually became my wife. When God called me to leave my father's home and wander, I told her, 'Show me this favor wherever we travel. Just tell people I am your brother.' Then Abimelech gathered sheep, cattle, and servants, gifting them all to Abraham, and he returned his wife Sarah. Abimelech said, 'Look, my land is open. Settle wherever it suits you.' To Sarah he said, 'I gave your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. This is to clear your name in front of everyone. Your honor is completely restored.' Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife, along with his female servants, so they could bear children again. For the Lord had closed every womb in Abimelech's house because of Abraham's wife Sarah. The Lord kept his word to Sarah, fulfilling his ancient promise. She became pregnant and gave Abraham a son in his old age, exactly when God said it would happen. Abraham named his baby boy Isaac and circumcised him on his 8th day of life, just as God had commanded. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. Sarah said, "God has brought me joy and laughter. Everyone who hears this will laugh with me. Who would say to Abraham that Sarah would ever nurse a baby? Yet I have given him a son in his old age." The child grew, and when he was finally weaned, Abraham threw a massive feast. But Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Hagar the Egyptian, mocking. She told Abraham, "Get rid of this servant woman and her boy. Her son will never share the family inheritance with my child, Isaac." This matter was deeply painful to Abraham because of his love for Ishmael. But God told him, "Do not grieve for the boy or the servant. Listen to whatever Sarah asks, because your true legacy will come through Isaac. But I will also make a great nation out of the servant's son, because he is your offspring too." Abraham got up early, packed some bread and a container of water, and sent Hagar away with the child. She wandered aimlessly in the harsh desert of Beersheba. When their water ran dry, she left the boy under a bush, walked a distance away, and sat down crying, "I cannot bear to watch my baby die." As she wept, God heard the boy crying. The angel of God called out to her from heaven, "What is wrong? Hagar, do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying over there. Go to him, pick him up, and hold him close. I will turn his descendants into a mighty nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a fresh well of water. She filled her container and gave the boy a drink. God stayed with the child as he grew up in the desert, becoming an expert archer. He lived in Paran, and his mother eventually found him a wife from Egypt. During that period, Abimelech and his army commander, Phicol, came to speak with Abraham. "God is clearly with you in everything you do. Swear to me now in God's name that you will not deceive me, my children, or my future descendants. Show me the same loyalty and kindness that I have shown you, both to myself and to this land where you are staying." And Abraham gave his oath. What do we bury to survive? He confronted the king over a stolen well, who replied, "I have no idea who did this. You never warned me. I only just heard about it today." Abraham set aside 7 young lambs. The king asked him what they meant, and Abraham answered, "Take these as proof that this water is mine." And so they named the place Beersheba, the well of the oath, marking their solemn pact. Once the covenant was sealed, Abimelech and his commander went back home. Abraham planted a sacred tree there, calling out to the divine, the Lord of all, the eternal creator. For a long time he lived as a stranger in their territory. Then came the ultimate test of the soul. God called out Abraham, and he answered, "I am here." Then a devastating command shattered the quiet. "Take your child, your only son, the one your heart treasures, and journey to the hills of Moriah. Sacrifice him there on the high peak that I will reveal to you." Before the sun rose, Abraham saddled his donkey, gathered 2 servants, and took Isaac, chopped the wood for the fire, and departed. 3 days into their journey, he looked up and saw the mountain in the distance. He told his men, "Wait here with the animal. My son and I must go up. We will pay our respects, and then we will return." He laid the wood onto Isaac, while holding the embers and the blade himself. Together, father and son walked on. "Father," the boy called out. He answered gently, "Yes, my son, what is it?" "We have the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb?" Abraham replied, "God himself will provide the lamb, my child." And they kept walking together in silence. When they reached the spot, Abraham slowly built an altar and arranged the dry wood, tied his own son, and placed him on top. He reached out, lifting the heavy blade to strike down his child, when a sudden voice roared from above, "Abraham! Abraham!" He gasped, "I am here." The angel of the Lord called out, "Do not touch the boy. Do not hurt him. I see now that you truly revere God, because you did not keep your only child for me." Abraham looked up and spotted a ram nearby, its horns tangled in a dense bush. He freed the ram and sacrificed it in place of his son, naming that sacred mountain, "The Lord will provide." And even now people say, on his holy mountain, provision is found. The divine voice spoke once more from the heavens. "I swear by my own name, declares the Lord, because you trusted me and did not keep your beloved only son, I will pour out endless blessings, making your descendants as numerous as the stars above and the grains of sand on the beach. Your family will conquer the gates of their rivals, and through your offspring every nation on earth will find blessing because you listened to my voice." Abraham walked back down to his men, and they journeyed home to Beersheba, where he stayed. Sometime later, news reached Abraham that his brother Nahor now had a family starting with Uz. Then Buz Kemuel, the father of Aram, Chesed, Hazo, Pildash, and Jidlaph, along with Bethuel, who fathered Rebekah. These 8 sons were born to Nahor and Milcah. His other partner, Rumah, gave birth to Teba, Gaham, Tahash, and Makkah. Sarah lived to 127 years in Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron in the land of Canaan. Her long life ended. Abraham wept and began to mourn, crying over her still body as the heavy silence of grief filled the dark tent. Finally, he stood up from his late wife's side and went to speak with the local people. "I am merely a traveler and a guest in your land. Please let me buy some property for a tomb, so I can lay my beloved wife to rest in peace." The locals replied, "Please listen, sir. You are a divine prince among us. Bury your dead in our finest tombs. None of us will deny you a resting place." Abraham bowed low, his voice heavy. "If you agree, speak to Ephron, son of Zohar, to yield the cave of Machpelah, sitting at the very edge of his field. For the full, true value, let it become my permanent ground, a sacred resting place among you." Ephron sat there among the Hittites, and he answered so all could hear his words, "No, my lord, hear me. I freely offer you the field and the cave within it. Before the elders watching at my city gates, I give it to you. Go bury your dead." But Abraham bowed once again, saying, "If only you would hear me. I must pay the price for the land. Accept my payment so I can lay her to rest." Ephron replied, "The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between us? Bury your dead." Abraham agreed, and weighed out the silver 400 shekels of it, measured by the standard merchant weights before all the Hittites. In this way, Ephron's field at Machpelah facing Mamre, along with the cave and every single tree within. Its borders became Abraham's undisputed possession, witnessed by all at the city gate. And there Abraham buried his wife Sarah in the quiet cave of Machpelah, near Mamre, which is Hebron in Canaan. Thus the field and its cave were legally secured to Abraham by the Hittites, establishing his first permanent sanctuary for the dead. Abraham was now very old, blessed in all things by the Lord. Yet a deep anxiety weighed heavily on his soul, finding a wife for Isaac, but not from the local Canaanites around them, but from his own bloodline. So he summoned his oldest, most trusted servant who managed his estate, demanding a sacred oath beneath his thigh, swearing by the name of the Lord, the God of heaven and earth. Promise you will not take a wife for my son from these strangers. Instead, journey to my homeland, to my kin, and find a bride for Isaac. The Lord who led me here will send his angel ahead of you. He took the oath and departed with 10 camels laden with treasures. At twilight, he reached the city of Nahor, making his camels rest by a well. There he prayed, Lord God of my master Abraham, grant me success today. Let the young woman who gives me a drink and waters my camels be the one you chose for Isaac. Before he even finished praying, Rebekah walked out, carrying a jar on her shoulder, the granddaughter of Milcah and Nahor. She was beautifully radiant, pure, and untouched. The servant ran to meet her, begging for a sip of water. She gave him a drink, then quickly drew for all, the camels too. In silent awe, he watched her until the animals had finished drinking. Then he gave her a heavy gold ring and bracelets, asking, "Whose daughter are you?" She replied, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah and Nahor. We have plenty of room for you." With that, the servant bowed low to the earth, worshiping the Lord, praising the God who had led him straight. Rebekah ran home to tell her family. Her brother, Laban, saw the gold and rushed to welcome the servant, calling out, "Come in, you who are blessed by the Lord." They prepared food, but he refused to eat before speaking. He shared Abraham's command, his prayer by the spring, and how clearly the Lord had answered him through Rebekah. Laban and Bethuel answered, "This is clearly from the Lord. Here is Rebekah. Take her and let her be the wife of your master's son." The servant bowed to the earth, presenting rich gifts of gold, silver, and clothes. At dawn he asked to leave, but her family wanted her to stay 10 more days. He urged for them not to hold him back, so they called Rebekah. She answered simply, "I will go." They blessed her. "Our sister, may you become the mother of millions, and may your descendants conquer the gates of their enemies." So she left with her maids riding on camels behind the servant. Meanwhile, Isaac was, "Why do we search the horizon at twilight?" Isaac, meditating in the fields, saw her caravan. Rebekah looked up, saw him, and got down. "Who is that man?" she asked. The guide whispered, "It is my master." She veiled her face, listening as the servant told Isaac the whole story. Then Isaac led her into the tent of Sarah, his mother. He took Rebekah, and she became his wife. He loved her, finding comfort in her presence after the painful loss of his mother. Abraham's days came to a close, rich and complete, and Yahweh gathered him to his ancestors at the age of 175. They laid him to rest in the cave of Machpelah beside Sarah, his beloved wife, in the field bought from the sons of Heth. Together, Isaac and Ishmael buried their father. The covenant blessing then passed to Isaac, who settled near the well of Lahai-Roi. The ancient text records the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son born to Hagar, Sarah's Egyptian maid. Ishmael fathered 12 sons, tribal princes who settled from Havilah to Shur near Egypt, reaching toward Assyria. He lived 137 years before passing away to join his ancestors, leaving a legacy of tribes divided from their kin, living in friction with all their brothers. The story now turns to Isaac, child of promise. He was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel and sister of Laban, to be his wife. But she was barren. Isaac prayed to Yahweh, and he answered. Rebekah conceived But the unborn children struggled inside her. Painfully troubled, she asked Yahweh, and he said, "Two nations are in your womb. Two rival peoples will be divided. One will grow stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When her time arrived, twins were born. The first came out red, his body covered with hair, so they named him Esau. The second baby followed, gripping his brother's heel. They called him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. As the boys grew, they split. Esau became a fierce hunter, a wild man of the fields, while Jacob remained a quiet soul, staying in the tents. Isaac favored Esau, loving his wild game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. One afternoon, Esau stumbled home starving from the wild, while Jacob was boiling a lentil stew. Esau demanded some of that red stew, giving him the name Edom. Right then, Jacob seized his chance. "Sell me your birthright first." Exhausted and near collapse, Esau dismissed the true value of what belonged to him. "Look, I am about to die. What use is a birthright to me?" At Jacob's demand, he swore a solemn oath, trading his inheritance for bread and stew. He ate, drank, stood up, and walked away. And so the text reveals Esau despised his sacred birthright. Here the future of nations began to shift, not by the power of the firstborn, but by the sovereign will of Yahweh, who knew the promise must flow through Jacob the younger. Famine choked the land once again, just as in Abraham's day. Isaac sought shelter in Gerar, ruled by Abimelech, king of the Philistines. But Yahweh appeared and warned him, "Do not go down to Egypt. Settle in the land I show you, and I will stay with you, blessing you for. To you and your descendants I give these territories. I will keep the promise I made to Abraham your father. I will multiply your family like the stars in the sky. Through them all nations will find blessing." So Isaac stayed in Gerar. Yet fear soon crept in because Rebekah was beautiful to look at. So he claimed she was his sister, terrified the locals would kill him to take her. But eventually Abimelech saw Isaac showing affection to his wife and confronted him. "She is clearly your wife. Why did you lie and say she was your sister? You could have brought guilt upon our people." Abimelech then decreed that anyone touching Isaac or Rebekah would face death. Yahweh's blessing followed Isaac. He planted crops in that soil and reaped 100-fold harvest that year. He grew incredibly rich, but what did his soul truly inherit? The Philistines envied his prosperity. They choked up the ancient wells his father's servants had dug. Then Abimelech pressured Isaac, saying, "Go away from us, for you have grown too powerful." Isaac retreated to the valley of Gerar, unblocking the ancient wells Abraham had dug and reclaiming their names. His men struck living water, yet the local herdsmen fought them for it. This first, well, he called Esek, meaning contention. The second he named Sitnah, which means hostility. Finally, they dug a third well without conflict. He named it Rehoboth, meaning wide spaces, declaring, "Now Yahweh has made room for us, and we will flourish in this land." From there he went up to Beersheba. That night, Yahweh appeared to him. "I am the God of Abraham your father. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your descendants because of my servant Abraham." There Isaac built an altar, worshipped the name of Yahweh, and pitched his tent. There his servants dug another well. Soon Abimelech returned with Ahuzath and Phicol. Isaac confronted them. "Why have you come to me, since you hated me and drove me out?" They replied, "We see clearly that Yahweh is with you. Let us make a covenant of peace. We did not harm you, letting you go safely. Now you are blessed by Yahweh." Isaac welcomed them, preparing a grand feast, and they swore a sacred oath. That same day his servants rushed to him, crying, "We have found water." So he named it Sheba, and that city is called Beersheba to this day. Yet peace was fleeting. At 40 years old, Esau took 2 wives, Judith, daughter of Beeri, the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon. These marriages brought deep bitterness of spirit to Isaac and Rebekah, casting a shadow of grief over the family. Even amidst Yahweh's blessings, Isaac's eyes had grown blind with age. He called for Esau, his eldest son, wanting to bless him before he died. "Take your bow and your quiver," he said. Hunt wild game and cook the delicious meal I love, so I may eat and bless you before Yahweh. But Rebekah was listening. She loved Jacob the younger, recalling Yahweh's promise that the older would serve the younger. She rushed to Jacob. Go bring me 2 young goats and I will. Prepare them just the way your father likes. You will serve him and he will bless you before he dies. Jacob feared discovery. My brother Esau is hairy, and I am smooth. If my father touches me, he will see me as a deceiver and curse me. But Rebekah answered, Let that curse fall on me, my son. Only listen. She dressed him in Esau's clothes and fastened goatskins over his hands and neck. Bearing the meal, masked in deception, Jacob stepped into his father's tent. My father, he called. Who is it? Isaac asked. I am Esau, your firstborn. Jacob lied. I have done as you asked. Sit up and eat so that you may bless me. But suspicion lingered. How did you find it so quickly? And Jacob answered, Because Yahweh your God brought it to me. Isaac reached out to feel him. The voice was Jacob's, but the hands were Esau's. Still doubtful, Isaac asked once more, Are you really my son, Esau? Jacob replied, I am. Isaac ate and drank, then called him close to kiss him. Breathing in the scent of Esau's clothes, he believed and spoke the blessing. May God grant you the dew of heaven, and the richness of the earth, abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and peoples bow before you. Be master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow to you. Cursed be anyone who curses you, and blessed be anyone who blesses you. Barely had Jacob slipped away when Esau returned with his wild game. Father, sit up and eat so your soul can bless me. But Isaac began to tremble violently. Who was it who brought me food before you arrived? I ate and blessed him, and yes, blessed he shall remain. Esau let out a bitter, agonizing cry. Bless me too, father. But Isaac replied, I have made him master over, you sustaining him with grain and wine. What is left for me to give you, my son? As Esau wept, Isaac spoke, Your home shall be far from the richness of the earth, and feed on the dew of heaven. By your own sword you will survive and serve your brother. But the day will come when you shatter his yoke from your neck. Esau's grief curdled into a cold rage. Once my father dies, I will destroy my brother Jacob. Rebekah caught wind of the threat and warned Jacob, Run to my brother Laban in Haran until your brother's anger cools. Why should I lose both of you in a single day? Then she cried to Isaac, If Jacob marries one of these local women, my life will not be worth living. So through theft and heavy fate, Jacob claimed the ultimate blessing, and a deep hatred took root, shaping the destiny of entire nations. Jacob fled from Beersheba, carrying the heavy weight of his father's stolen blessing and the ancient promise of Abraham. Traveling alone on the road to Haran, he left behind the tents of his family and the burning hatred of his brother. The sun fell, and he stopped at an ordinary nameless place. Resting his head on a cold stone, he lay down under the dark sky. In the quiet of night, he dreamed. A massive stairway stood rooted in the earth, its peak reaching deep into the heavens. Divine messengers moved endlessly upon its steps, bridging the great divide between the earth below and the sky above. At the top of the staircase stood the Lord himself, speaking words that anchored Jacob's trembling path to divine certainty. I am the Lord, the God of your grandfather Abraham, and the God of Isaac. This land, where you rest, I will give to you and your descendants. They will be like the dust of the earth, spreading to the west and the east, north and south. Through your lineage, every family on the earth will be blessed. Remember, I am with you. I will protect you wherever you wander and bring you back to this soil. I will never abandon you until my promise is fully realized. Jacob woke up trembling with awe. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was completely unaware of it. His soul filled with a terrifying wonder, knowing he lay at the very gates of heaven. He named the place Bethel, the house of God, and took the stone he slept on to stand as a sacred pillar, pouring oil to consecrate the ground. He made a vow. If God goes with me, protects me, and gives me food and clothes, and brings me safely back to my father's house, then the Lord will truly be my God. This stone will mark God's house, and of everything he provides, I will give a tenth back to him. In this way, the runner became a prophet. Out in the wild, under a ceiling of stars, Jacob found presence instead of isolation, finding purpose instead of despair. The vision proved that earth and heaven were never divided, but linked under God's watchful eye, and that Jacob's wanderings were tied to an ancient, eternal promise. Traveling east, Jacob reached a well in Haran where shepherds waited with their thirsty flocks. Among them was Rachel, the daughter of Laban, arriving with her sheep. Sudden strength surged through his veins. Alone, he rolled the massive stone away from the well to water her sheep. Overwhelmed, he kissed her and wept, recognizing both family and his own future. Welcomed warmly into Laban's home, Jacob agreed to work 7 years to marry Rachel. But love made the hard work feel light, and the years flew by like days. When the time came, a wedding feast was thrown. But in the dark of night, Laban substituted Leah instead. At sunrise, Jacob realized he had been tricked, his angry shouts echoing his own history of deceit. Laban brushed it off, claiming custom demanded the older sister must be married first. But he offered Rachel as well, demanding another 7 years of hard labor. So Jacob married both sisters, though his heart belonged only to Rachel. God noticed Leah was ignored and blessed her with children, while Rachel remained barren. Leah gave birth to Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, choosing names that cried out for her husband's love, and praise seeking her husband's love before finally declaring, "Now I will praise Yahweh." So tension filled Jacob's home with love for Rachel's children for Leah and divine guidance, shaping them both. Through longing jealousy and holy mercy, the nation of Israel was born. Jacob's home became a stage of conflict and mercy. Rachel, still childless, watched Leah's growing family with bitter jealousy, crying out, "Give me children or I die." Jacob, provoked by her grief, snapped back that only Elohim commands life. In deep despair, she offered her servant Bilhah, who bore Dan and Naphtali boys, Rachel claimed as her own. Triumphs over her sister. Leah, refusing to lose ground, offered her servant Zilpah, who bore Gad and Asher. The desperate fight for Jacob's heart had become a war of births. One harvest season, young Reuben found mandrakes in the field, plants thought to spark fertility. Rachel wanted them, but a bitter Leah accused her of stealing her mandrakes and her husband. So they made a deal. Jacob would sleep with Leah that very night in exchange for the plants. From this trade, Issachar was born, then Zebulun, and at last their daughter Dinah. Leah spoke with new pride, sure that this gift from Elohim would finally win her husband's heart. Finally, Elohim remembered Rachel. He answered her prayer, and she gave birth to a son, saying, "Elohim has taken away my shame." She named the boy Joseph, hoping that Yahweh would give her yet another son. As his family grew, Jacob knew he had to secure their future. Laban, seeing that Yahweh's blessing followed Jacob, tried to make him stay. But Jacob, tired of being a servant, made a deal. He would take only the spotted, speckled, and dark-colored animals. By placing carved branches near the drinking troughs, Jacob bred the strongest of the beasts, quickly growing a massive, healthy flock of his own. So Yahweh made Jacob rich. His tents filled with children, his herds grew strong, and his estate thrived with servants and livestock. Yet beneath this wealth lay deep anger, rivalry, and deceit, shaping both divine favor and human pain. Jacob's decades of work for Laban ended not with a handshake, but with bitter anger. Laban's sons claimed he had stolen all their father's riches, and Jacob saw that Laban looked at him with dark hostility. Then Yahweh spoke, "Go back to the home of your ancestors, to your own people, and I will protect you." Jacob called Rachel and Leah to the field, explaining how their father cheated him 10 times, yet proving that Elohim had always shielded him. The sisters, carrying deep anger at how their father treated them, declared they had no inheritance left in his house. All that Elohim took from our father belongs to us and our family. Go and do what Elohim commanded. So Jacob put his family on camels, gathered his herds, and headed toward Canaan. But Rachel secretly slipped away with her father's household gods, while Jacob fled without warning. When Laban discovered the escape, he gave chase, tracking Jacob for 7 days before catching him in the hills of Gilead. But that night, Elohim spoke to Laban in a dream, telling him not to threaten Jacob or say anything to him. Confronting Jacob, Laban yelled about the trickery and theft. Jacob, having no idea what Rachel did, swore that no one in his camp had stolen anything. Rachel hid the gods under her saddle, pretending she was too weak to stand, and Laban found nothing. Outraged, Jacob snapped, reminding Laban of 20 years of hard labor, 14 for Rachel and Leah, and 6 for the flocks suffering through scorching heat-freezing nights and sleepless work. If not for the Elohim of my father, the feared God of Isaac, you would have cast me out with nothing. Finally, the old rivalries eased. They raised a stone monument, a silent witness to a fragile truce, calling it Mizpah. May the Lord watch between us, they prayed. When we are hidden from each other, they swore oaths by the God of their fathers, broke bread together, and slept upon the quiet, dark hill. At dawn, Laban kissed his family, offered a final blessing, and departed. Jacob remained walking under the shadow of the divine, free at last to face the journey back to his ancestral home. But returning home meant facing his own dark history. Messengers brought back chilling news. Esau was marching with 400 men. The ancient ghost of his brother's rage had awakened, and terror gripped him. Desperate, he split his camp in two, preparing for the worst, hoping one half might survive the slaughter. Then, in despair, he cried out to God, "I am completely unworthy of the mercy you have poured out. Once I had only a staff, and now I lead an army. Save me, I beg, from my brother's wrath." To quiet the coming storm, Jacob gathered a massive peace offering of livestock. Herds of beasts sent forward in waves miles ahead of him, telling each driver to say, "This is a humble offering from Jacob, sent to my lord Esau, and your servant Jacob follows close behind." Under the cover of night, Jacob sent his family and all he owned across the dark river. Now, utterly alone in the blackness, a shadow lunged. A stranger wrestled him through the dark hours of the night. Struggling in deadlock, the adversary struck Jacob's hip, dislocating the joint. Yet he refused to let go, gasping through the pain. "I will not release you without a blessing." The figure asked his name. "Jacob," he whispered. Then came the words that changed everything. "Your name is no longer Jacob, but Israel, for you have fought with God and prevailed." In his deep brokenness and physical pain, the patriarch received a profound new identity. He named that holy ground Peniel, declaring, "I have seen God face to face, yet my soul was spared." As dawn broke, Jacob limped forward into his waiting future, a wounded man deeply blessed, carrying a name that would echo through history. Squinting through the morning light, he saw him. Esau marching with 400 armed men. The old terror returned, but he stood firm, arranging his family in careful order, placing the children and wives behind him, shielding those he loved. Then Jacob stepped out in front. Slowly he walked toward his brother, bowing low to them, dust 7 times in ultimate surrender until the gap between them vanished. But the imagined horror never arrived. Esau suddenly broke into a run, arms wide open. He threw them around Jacob's neck, weeping as he kissed him. They cried together, mourning decades of exile, washed in the relief of sudden grace. Looking past his brother, Esau saw the families and asked quietly, "Who are all these?" Jacob whispered, "The family God has graciously given me." Then the servants and their children came forward, bowing in respect. Leah and her children followed. And last of all came Rachel and Joseph, pointing to the massive herds he had passed. Esau asked what they meant. Jacob said, "They are to win your favor." But Esau shook his head. "I have enough, my brother. Keep what is yours, But Jacob begged him, saying, "Please accept my offering. God has been good to me, and I have everything. Seeing your face is like seeing the face of God himself now that you welcome me." Finally, Esau accepted. Esau urged his brother to travel alongside him, but Jacob gently declined, pointing out the weakness of his young children and slow-moving herds. Esau offered an escort, but Jacob quietly declined. And so Esau returned that day towards Seir, while Jacob headed for Sukkoth, building himself a home and shelters for his livestock. Later, Jacob arrived safely at Shechem in Canaan, buying a plot of land from the sons of Hamor for 100 kesitas. On that ground he built an altar calling on the Elohim of Israel, the God who had protected, healed, and renamed him. Dinah, the daughter of Leah and Jacob, went to meet the local women. But Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite ruler of that region, saw her, seized her, and violated her. Yet his soul became deeply attached to her, and he spoke gently to her, begging his father to get this girl as his wife. When Jacob heard what had happened, he kept silent until his sons returned from the fields. Meanwhile, Hamor came to him wanting to negotiate. Just as the sons returned and learned of the outrage, they were filled with grief and burning anger because a shameful act had been done to Israel, something they declared must never be tolerated. Hamor pleaded with them, saying his son loved their daughter and wanted her as his wife. He suggested they intermarry trading daughters and living peacefully in the land, trading and owning property. Shechem himself begged to find favor in their eyes, promising to pay any bride price or dowry they demanded if only they would grant him his bride. But Jacob's sons plotted a deceptive reply because of Dinah. Simeon and Levi. Her own brothers insisted they could never give her to an uncircumcised man, calling it a deep disgrace. They would only agree on this condition: every male in the city had to be circumcised. Only then could they swap daughters, merging to become one single people. "If you refuse, we take our sister and leave." Hamor and Shechem readily agreed. The young prince wasted no time, utterly infatuated with Dinah. The two leaders spoke at the city gates, calling Jacob's family peaceful neighbors, inviting them to settle the vast land. They would trade daughters and inherit their wealth provided. Every local male underwent circumcision. Hearing this, the citizens agreed to the terms. 3 days later, while the men were still recovering and helpless, Simeon and Levi drew their weapons and ambushed the unsuspecting city, slaughtering every single male, executing both Hamor and Shechem before pulling Dinah from his house. Jacob's other sons then looted the city, taking livestock, valuables, women, and children as captives. Hearing this, Jacob confronted his sons, accusing them of bringing ruin and making him hated by the Canaanites and Perizzites. Being few in number, any local alliance would destroy us completely. But they spat back defiantly, asking if their sister should be treated like a prostitute. So the dishonor of Shechem was met with bloody vengeance, leaving an entire city dead and a heavy shadow of guilt over Israel's house. Jacob's internal journey entered a new phase when Elohim spoke to him. "Go up to Bethel. Live there, and build an altar to the God who appeared when you were running from Esau." Bethel was where he first saw the ladder climbing toward heaven. And now God summoned him back, no longer a runaway, but the head of a household. Jacob assembled his household and commanded them to get rid of their pagan idols and purify, themselves changing their clothes. They would journey to Bethel, where he would build an altar to the God who answered him in his darkest hours and has walked beside him. His household surrendered their local idols and jewelry, and Jacob buried them under a terebinth tree near Shechem. As they traveled, a divine terror gripped the nearby cities, preventing anyone from chasing them. Reaching Bethel, Jacob built an altar, naming it El Bethel, because that was where Elohim had met him in his darkest flight from Esau. Not long after Deborah, Rebekah's old nurse, passed away. She was buried beneath a great tree named the Oak of Weeping. The divine appeared to Jacob again, transforming his identity. "Your name is no longer Jacob, but Israel. I am the Almighty. Grow and multiply. A sovereign nation and a collective of nations will rise from you, and kings will be born of your bloodline. This sacred land I promised to Abraham and Isaac, is now yours and your descendants after you." Then the divine departed. Jacob raised a stone monument, poured out an offering, and anointed it with sacred oil, calling it Bethel. They traveled onward toward Ephrath. But Rachel, the most beloved wife of Jacob, was gripped by a painful and dangerous labor. Her midwife cried, "Do not fear, another boy." As her life slipped away, she named him Benoni, son of my sorrow. But Jacob named him Benjamin, the son of my right hand. There she died, buried beside the dusty road leading to Bethlehem. Jacob set a stone marker over her grave, a monument standing to this day. Israel journeyed on, pitching his camp beyond Migdal-Eder. Yet deep grief returned when his oldest, Reuben, slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine. It was a betrayal that Israel soon discovered, and a dark shadow of shame hung over the family. Now Jacob's 12 sons were all born. Leah bore 6, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Rachel bore Joseph and Benjamin. From Bilhah came Dan and Naphtali, and from Zilpah Gad and Asher. 12 sons who would become the patriarchs of Israel. At last Jacob returned to his father Isaac in Hebron, where their ancestors had lived. Isaac lived for 180 years until he drew his final breath, joining his ancestors at a ripe old age. His estranged sons Esau and Jacob buried him, sealing the past as the sacred covenant passed to the next generation. The narrative now shifts from Jacob, the chosen heir, to Esau, the founding father of the kingdom of Edom. Though outside the chosen covenant line, his powerful legacy forged mighty nations that would long endure as Israel's neighbors, rivals, and bitter enemies. Esau married women of Canaan: Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite; Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, son of Zibeon; and Basemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebaioth. They bore him sons: Eliphaz by Adah, Ruel by Basemath, and Jeush, Jalam, and Korah by Oholibamah. All these sons were born in Canaan, but the immense wealth of the two brothers made it impossible to live together. Their herds and livestock crowded the plains, so Esau parted ways with his brother, migrating to the rugged highlands of Seir. There Esau took the name Edom, fathering the Edomite nation. Esau's genealogy unfolds in generations of sons, grandsons, and the tribal chiefs of their clans. From Eliphaz rose Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz, and Amalek, born to his concubine, Timnah. Ruel fathered Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. Oholibamah bore Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. They rose as chieftains, ruling vast households and lands throughout the territory of Edom. The sacred text also remembers the sons of Seir the Horite, the land's original inhabitants: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. Their ancient clans are recorded men and women, remembered not just as names, but as the seeds of future nations. These early chiefs ruled long before. Esau's lineage conquered the territory, weaving their ancient heritage deep into the history of Edom. In time, kings ruled Edom before Israel ever had a king. Bela, then Jobab, son of Zerah; Husham from the land of Teman; and Hadad, who crushed the Midianites on Moab's plains; Samlah of Masrekah; Saul of Rehoboth by the river; and Baal-Hanan, son of Achbor; and Hadad of Pau. These early rulers proved that the kingdom of Edom was strong and established, while Israel was merely a wandering family searching for home. Why does this ancient text list the dark chieftains of Esau, mapping their families and ancestral homes? Timnah Alva, Jetheth, Oholibamah, Elah, Pinyon, Kenaz, Teman, Mibzar Magdiel, and Iram. Each ruled over their own private empire, and together they became the nation of Edom, the heavy shadow of Esau, who is Edom. This ancient parchment guards the tragedy of a brother-turned nation, cast out of Jacob's covenant, yet still recorded by history with their own borders and leaders and kings. a mirror standing as both a brother and bitter adversary to Israel, a living wound of love and betrayal split from the same ancient home. Meanwhile, Jacob settled in the land of Canaan where his father once wandered. Among his sons, Joseph, merely 17, was a quiet outcast. He tended flocks with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. But unlike them, he carried whispers of their dark sins back to their father. Worse still, Jacob, or Israel, adored Joseph most of all, because he was the child of his old age. To display this dangerous favor, Jacob gifted Joseph a beautifully woven, ornate coat, painting a target on his back before the household. This poison bred deep hatred. His brothers could not speak a single kind word. Then the dreams began. First, he told them of golden sheaves of wheat, theirs bowing to his. Their hatred burned hotter at the thought of his dominion. Then came a second vision, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing to him. Even his father rebuked him, asking if they must all bow down to him yet. Jacob quietly pondered the vision while his brother's jealousy burned even hotter. One day Jacob sent Joseph from Hebron to track his brothers herding in Shechem. Wandering the vast wilderness, a stranger sent him to Dothan. From afar his brothers watched him approach. Dark envy turned to murder. Here comes the dreamer. Let us kill him and throw him in a pit, and say a savage beast devoured him. Then we will see what becomes of his dreams. Reuben, the oldest, tried to save him. Spare his life, he urged. Throw him into this cistern in the desert, intending to secretly return him to their father. Once Joseph finally arrived, they ripped off his colorful coat and hurled him into the dry pit. Then, cold-hearted, they sat down to eat. As they ate, a band of Ishmaelite traders approached, carrying spices to Egypt. Judah spoke up. What do we gain by killing our brother and hiding his blood? Let us sell him. He is our own blood after all. The brothers agreed, dragging Joseph from the pit and selling him to the travelers for 20 pieces of silver. The merchants carried him away to distant Egypt. When Reuben returned and found the well completely empty, he tore his clothes in despair. The brothers dipped the beautiful coat in goat's blood and carried it to their father. Jacob recognized it and wept. It is my son's coat. A savage beast has devoured. Him, Joseph, is torn to shreds. He tore his clothes, put on rough sackcloth, and wept for days. No one could comfort him as he vowed to go down grieving to the grave. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, Pharaoh's royal officer and captain of the guard. Thus, the dreamer's dark road led to a hidden destiny quietly ordered by God's hand. In that dark season, Judah abandoned his brothers and stayed near an Adullamite man named Hira. There he married a Canaanite woman, the daughter of Shua, to be his wife. She bore him 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah. When Judah's firstborn son grew up, Judah gave him a wife named Tamar. But was wicked in the eyes of God, and God took his life. Judah then ordered his second son, Onan, to accept his duty to marry Tamar and raise up a legacy for his dead brother. But Onan, trapped in his own selfish fear, wasted his vital legacy on the ground, refusing to secure his late brother's lineage. This defiance angered God, who struck Onan down in judgment. Gripped by fear for his youngest son, Judah exiled Tamar, ordering her to wait in her father's house until the boy matured. Yet he never meant to keep his word. So Tamar went back, trapped in silence. Years dissolved, and Judah's own wife passed away. Once his dark season of grief had finally lifted, he traveled to Timnah to shear his flocks with his friend Hira. Learning of this, Tamar realized that though Shelah was grown, she was still cast aside. So she stripped away her widow's clothes, wrapped herself in a veil, and sat disguised by the roadside at Enaim. Judah passed by, failing to recognize his own daughter-in-law, and assumed she was a temple prostitute. Stepping off the path, he promised her a young goat, but she demanded a secure guarantee until it arrived, his seal cord and staff. He handed them over, and she conceived. Later, Judah sent his friend with the goat to reclaim his items, but the mysterious woman was gone, and the locals insisted no prostitute had ever been there. Fearing public humiliation, Judah let it go. 3 months later, word reached him that Tamar was pregnant, accused of playing the harlot. Furious, he demanded she be dragged out and burned alive. But as they led her to her death, she sent the evidence to Judah. I am pregnant by the owner of these things. Identify them your seal, cord, and staff. Judah recognized them instantly and confessed, She is more righteous than I am, for I broke my promise to give her to Shelah. And he never touched her again. When her time came, Tamar bore twins. During labor, one baby reached out his hand, and the midwife tied a scarlet thread around his wrist. But he pulled back, and his brother broke through instead. The midwife gasped, How you have breached your way out, and named him Perez. Soon after, his brother emerged with the scarlet thread and was named Zerah. Through Tamar's desperate, bold plot, the line of Judah endured through Perez, the forefather of kings, and eventually the Christ. Meanwhile, Joseph was carried down to Egypt, sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Ripped from his father's house and betrayed by his own brothers, Joseph was never abandoned. The Lord was with him, making him succeed in all things. Potiphar quickly noticed this divine favor resting on the young Hebrew. Placing his trust in him, he put Joseph in charge of his household, giving him authority over his entire estate. From that moment, a divine blessing poured over Potiphar's house and his fields, all because of Joseph. Potiphar didn't worry about a single thing except his own meals. Joseph grew exceptionally handsome, strong in build and in time. His master's wife began to lust after him. "Sleep with me," she demanded. But Joseph refused. "My master does not worry about anything in this house. He has withheld nothing from me. But you, since you are his wife, how could I commit such a wicked act and sin against God?" Day after day she pressured him, but Joseph refused to surrender or even stand near her. One afternoon he stepped inside the quiet house to do his work, with no other servants around. Potiphar's wife grabbed him by his cloak, pleading, "Come to bed with me." But he broke away, leaving his garment in her hand, and fled. When she saw he had run out, she summoned the household servants to spin her lie. "Look, he brought this Hebrew in to humiliate us. He tried to force himself on me, but I screamed, and he panicked, leaving his cloak behind." She set the garment aside, waiting for her husband to return. Then she repeated the false accusation. "The Hebrew slave you brought here came to disgrace me." When I screamed, he fled, leaving his cloak behind. Potiphar flew into a rage, throwing Joseph into the dungeon where the king's prisoners were bound. Yet even in that dark pit, the Lord stayed with Joseph, showing him mercy and favor in the eyes of the jail warden. Before long, Joseph was put in charge of every prisoner there, and the warden stopped worrying about anything under his watch. Whatever Joseph did, the Lord made it thrive. Even while falsely accused and deeply wronged, Joseph walked in the presence of the Lord, who was quietly shaping his path to greatness. During Joseph's time behind bars, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker angered their sovereign, the king of Egypt. Furious Pharaoh threw them into the very same prison where Joseph was locked away under the watchful eye of the guard captain. The captain ordered Joseph to serve them, and so he tended to these high-ranking men even while living in chains. Sometime later, both of these officials had a dream on the very same night, each with its own meaning. When morning came, Joseph noticed their heavy spirits and asked, "Why are your faces so sad today?" They answered, "We both had dreams, but there is nobody here to explain them." Joseph spoke with a quiet confidence that came only from the Lord. "Do not all explanations belong to God? Please tell me your dreams." The cupbearer went first. "In my dream, I saw a grapevine right in front of me, with 3 growing branches. It budded, flowered, and grew ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's cup in my hand, so I squeezed the grapes into it and handed the cup directly to Pharaoh." Joseph told him, "Here is what it means. Those 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will release you and return you to your old job. You will serve Pharaoh his wine just like you used to. But please remember me when you are free. Be kind. put in a good word for me and get me out of this dark dungeon, for I was kidnapped from my homeland, and I have done absolutely nothing to deserve being locked up here." Encouraged by this good news, the baker eagerly shared his dream as well. Look, there were 3 bread baskets on my head. The top one was filled with delicious pastries for Pharaoh, finely crafted baked goods. But birds kept eating them straight out of the basket. Joseph answered grimly, "This is what it means. Those 3 baskets represent 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will raise your head, literally. He will hang your body on a post, and wild birds will eat your flesh." 3 days later, on Pharaoh's birthday, he threw a grand banquet and called for his 2 imprisoned officials. He gave the cupbearer his old job back, but the baker was executed just as Joseph predicted. But the cupbearer completely forgot about Joseph. He left him behind. Even in this, the hand of God was quietly at work through broken promises and the long, silent waiting of his servant preparing everything for the moment Joseph would rise. 2 whole years passed. Then Pharaoh had a dream. In his first vision, he stood by the edge of the mighty Nile River. Out of the water stepped 7 cows, healthy, beautiful to look at, and fat with meat grazing peacefully in the thick marsh grass. Right behind them, from that very same water, came 7 other cows, starved, bony, and terrible to see. These ugly, emaciated cows walked up to, stand right next to the healthy ones on the bank. Then the starving cows ate the fat ones. But even after devouring them whole, they looked just as thin and sickly as before. Suddenly, Pharaoh woke up. He fell back asleep and had a second dream. He saw 7 heads of grain growing on a single stalk, healthy, thick, and ripe. But then 7 other heads sprouted, withered and dried up by the desert wind, shriveled and empty. These 7 dry heads swallowed the 7 healthy ones. Once again, Pharaoh woke up and realized it was all a dream. When morning arrived, his mind was deeply troubled. He sent for every magician in Egypt and all the wise scholars and told them his dreams. But not a single soul could explain them. That was when the chief cupbearer finally spoke up, admitting his mistake. "Today I confess my failure. When the king raged against his servants, he threw me and the royal baker into deep confinement. On a single night, we both had dreams that haunted us, each carrying its own heavy mystery. A young Hebrew boy, a servant in that dark place, heard our visions. He spoke their meaning, untangling the secrets hidden inside our sleeping minds, and his words came true. I was returned to my high office while the baker was hanged. Pharaoh summons Joseph at once. They drag him from the dark pit, blinking into the light. He shaves, sheds his prison rags, and is led straight before the God King, who speaks. I had a dream that no wise man can unravel. But they say you have the power to decipher the shadows of the night. Joseph answers quietly, saying, "The power is not mine, but God will give the king an answer of peace." The ruler begins his tale. I stood beside the great Nile watching 7 fat, healthy cows rise from the river and feed in the grass. Suddenly, 7 other beasts emerged from the muddy shallows, diseased, skeletal, and hideous. I have never witnessed such grotesque sights in all this ancient country. These starved monsters devoured the 7 fat cows, swallowing them whole into their hollow bellies. Yet you could not tell they had eaten. They remained as gaunt as before. Then I awoke. Sleeping again, I saw 7 golden ears of grain ripe on one stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 more, withered and scorched by the desert wind. These cursed grains swallowed up the healthy stalks. I shared this with my sorcerers, but not a single soul could explain its meaning. Joseph replies, "Both visions tell the same story. God is revealing what is about to unfold. The 7 healthy cows represent 7 years, just as the 7 ripe ears symbolize 7 years. They point to the exact same future. The 7 thin, hideous cows that came up next represent 7 years, and the 7 empty grains scorched by the wind are 7 years of brutal famine. This is exactly what I told you, my king. The Creator has revealed his hand before he acts. Look, 7 years of immense wealth and harvest are descending upon our kingdom. But after them, 7 years of starvation will strike, wiping the memory of that abundance clean from the earth. The hunger will devour this nation, and those prosperous years will fade like a ghost, because the coming catastrophe will be absolutely crushing. Since the vision was given to you twice, the decree is set in stone by God, and He will bring it to pass very quickly. Therefore, the king must find a deeply wise and discerning leader, and place him in charge of this country. Appoint officers to collect a fifth of the harvest during these golden 7 years. They must gather every grain of food from the coming abundant years and stockpile it safely under the king's control, preserving massive food reserves for every major city, keeping it under constant watch. This supply will save the country when those 7 years of terrible hunger strike our borders, ensuring the entire nation does not perish in the dark days ahead. This strategic plan pleases the ruler and his council. The king looks at his ministers and asks, "Where else can we find someone filled with the very breath of God?" He turns to Joseph. "Because God has revealed all these deep secrets to you, no one alive possesses your wisdom. You will govern my entire palace, and all my subjects will obey your commands. Only regarding the royal throne will I hold a higher rank. Today I set you over the entire empire." The king slides the royal signet ring from his finger, placing it onto Joseph's hand. He drapes him in robes of the finest linen and hangs a heavy gold chain around his neck. He seats Joseph in his second royal chariot, as heralds march ahead of him shouting, "Bow down." With this, the king places him over the land, declaring, "I am Pharaoh, yet without your word no one shall lift hand or foot in all this land." The ruler names him Zaphanath-Paneah and gives him Asenath, daughter of the high priest. With the priest of On's daughter as his bride, Joseph steps out to rule over this foreign land. At 30 years old, he stands before Pharaoh, embarking on a heavy journey across the entire land. During 7 abundant years, the earth yields a massive, overflowing harvest as Joseph gathers all the grain from these fruitful seasons, hiding the vast reserves deep within the fortified cities, locking away the harvest of the surrounding fields. He piles up the grain in staggering, immeasurable quantities like the sand of the sea, until he stops counting because it is simply beyond measure. But before the dark years of hunger descend, his wife Asenath bears him 2 sons, daughter of the priest of On. He names his firstborn Manasseh, declaring, "Elohim has made me forget all my past suffering at my father's house." He names the second son Ephraim, saying, "Elohim has made me fruitful in the land of my deep humiliation." Then the 7 years of great abundance across the land of Egypt silently draw to an end, and the 7 years of famine begin exactly as Joseph warned. Deep hunger grips all surrounding nations, yet throughout Egypt there is bread. When the entire country begins to starve, the desperate people cry out to Pharaoh for bread, and the king answers, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." Joseph opens the massive storehouses, rationing out the grain as the brutal famine deepens across the land. The devastating hunger spreads across the entire earth, and from every distant land, desperate people journey to Egypt seeking Joseph to buy grain because the famine has gripped the entire world. The severe hunger weighs heavily on the land of Canaan. Jacob, seeing that there is still grain to be bought in Egypt, speaks to his sons. "Why do you stand here staring at each other in fear? I hear there is food in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may survive and not starve to death." So 10 of Joseph's brothers journey to Egypt. But Jacob keeps the youngest brother Benjamin behind, fearing that some tragedy might claim him too. So the sons of Israel join the crowds, traveling to the safety of Egypt, because the brutal famine has devastated Canaan as well. By now, Joseph is the absolute ruler of Egypt. He personally controls the grain distribution. When his brothers arrive, they bow low before him, pressing their faces to the dust. Joseph recognizes them instantly, but he conceals his identity and speaks with cold, harsh authority. "Where do you come from?" he demands. They answer, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." Though Joseph knows them, they do not recognize him. In that silent moment, Joseph remembers the vivid dreams of his childhood, and he accuses them. "You are spies. You have come to find our weaknesses." They protest, "No, my lord. Your servants have only come to buy food. We are all sons of one father. We are honest men. We have never been spies.
But Joseph presses them.
No, you have come to expose the vulnerabilities of our country. They plead. We were 12 brothers once, all sons of one father in Canaan. The youngest remains with our father today, and one of us is no more. Joseph answers coldly. It is exactly as I told you. You are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh you will not leave unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you to fetch your brother while the rest are chained. Thus your words will be tested, to see if there is any truth in you. If not, by Pharaoh, you are guilty. With that, he throws them all into custody for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph tells them, do this, and you will live. For I fear Elohim. If you are honest men, let one brother remain bound in this prison, while the rest of you may go and take grain to feed your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother back to me, so that your words may be proven true, and you will not die. They agreed. Then they whispered to each other, knowing they were finally paying for abandoning their brother. We saw his sheer terror as he begged for mercy, but we chose to ignore him. Now this nightmare is ours. Reuben turned on them, demanding, did I not warn you not to harm the boy, but you refused to listen? And now we must pay for his blood. They had no idea that Joseph understood every word, since he was using an interpreter to hide. Joseph turned away, breaking down in tears. When he composed himself, he dragged Simeon away and had him chained right before their eyes. Then Joseph ordered their sacks filled up, while secretly slipping each brother's silver back into his own bag, giving them plenty of food for the long road. His commands were carried out instantly. They packed up their beasts of burden and left. That night at Camp 1 opened his feed bag to give grain to his donkey, and there was all his silver sitting right on top. He yelled to the others, my money was returned. Look, it is right here. Instantly, dread gripped them, and they shook with fear, asking each other, what is God doing to us? When they finally reached their father Jacob in Canaan, they confessed everything. The ruler of the land, he was brutal to us, accusing us of being spies. But we protested our innocence, saying we are decent men, not spies. We were once 12 brothers, but one is gone forever, and our youngest brother is still home with our father in Canaan. But the ruler replied, here is how I will test your honesty. Leave one of your brothers behind with me. Take food to feed your starving families and go. But you must bring your youngest brother back to prove you are not spies. Only then will I free your brother and let you buy food. When they began dumping out their sacks, they gasped. Every single man's silver was inside. Looking at those bags of silver, a cold panic swept over them and their father. Jacob cried, you are stripping my children away. Joseph is dead. Simeon is gone, and now you want to take Benjamin too. Everything is crashing down on me. Reuben stepped forward and pleaded with his father. You can kill my own 2 sons if I fail to bring him back. Put him in my hands, and I will protect him. But Jacob refused, saying, my youngest boy will not go with you. His full brother is dead. He is all I have left. If anything happens to him on the road, the grief will literally drive this old man straight to his grave. And so the standoff remained. Jacob clung desperately to his last favorite son, while starvation tightened its grip on the world. The drought was unforgiving. Once they had devoured every last grain had brought back from Egypt. Jacob told them, go back and buy us some more food. Judah confronted him, reminding him the ruler of that country gave us a terrifying warning, you cannot see my face ever again, unless your youngest brother is with you. If you send him, we will go and buy provisions. But if you refuse to let him go, we are staying. For that man warned us we would not be allowed in his presence without our youngest brother. Israel groaned. Why did you bring this misery on me by even mentioning you had another brother? They replied, the man interrogated us relentlessly about our background and our family, asking if our father was alive or if we had brothers. We simply answered him. How on earth could we predict he would demand that we bring our brother to Egypt? Judah pleaded with his father Israel. Let the boy come with me. We must leave now so that we can all survive instead of starving to death. I pledge my own life for him. Hold me personally responsible. If I fail to bring him back and place him before you, let the blame rest on my shoulders forever. If we had not wasted all this time, we would have been back twice by now. Their father Israel finally relented. If it must be, then do this. Carry some of our finest. Pack the finest fruits of our soil into your bags. Sweet honey and healing balm for this powerful stranger. Resins, almonds, and pistachios. Carry twice the silver this time, along with the coins you found, tucked inside your sacks. Maybe it was just an honest mistake. And yes, you must take your brother. Go back to him now. May God Almighty grant you mercy in the presence of this stranger. So he lets Simeon and Benjamin return. As for me, if I must lose my children, I will lose them. With gifts double the silver and Benjamin in tow, they journeyed back to Egypt, standing once more before Joseph. Seeing his youngest brother Joseph, turned to his steward and commanded, "Bring these travelers inside. Prepare a great feast. Slaughter an animal, for they are going to dine with me at noon today." The servant did exactly as he was told. But as they crossed the threshold, panic gripped the brothers, whispering to one another, "It is because of the silver we found inside our bags last time that they have trapped us here. He is looking for an excuse to strike us, enslave us all, and seize our animals as his own." Desperate, they cornered the chief steward right at the doorway, begging for a hearing. "Please, sir, we only came here to buy food. But when we stopped for the night and opened up our sacks, we discovered every single coin sitting right there at the top, the exact amount we paid. Look, we have brought all of it back, plus even more silver to buy grain this time. We honestly have no idea who put those coins in there." The steward smiled. "Calm down. Do not be afraid. Your God, the God of your ancestors, must have hidden that treasure for you. I was fully paid." Then he led Simeon out to them. He welcomed them into the grand estate, offered them fresh water so they could wash their dusty feet, and fed their weary animals. They quickly arranged their peace offerings, knowing they were expected to eat with the master of the house. When Joseph finally arrived, they presented their gifts, bowing low to the very earth before him. He asked how they were doing, then inquired, "Tell me, is your elderly father still doing well? The one you mentioned before. Is he still living?" They replied, "Yes, your servant is alive and well." And they bowed their heads once more in deep, humble respect. Looking up, Joseph locked eyes with his full brother Benjamin and whispered, "Is this indeed your youngest brother, the one you described? May God be merciful to you, my child." Suddenly, Joseph had to rush out. His love for his brother was overwhelming, and he desperately needed to cry. Hurrying into his private chamber, he wept bitterly before washing his face, composed himself, and ordered them to serve the meal. They served him alone, his brothers separately, and the Egyptian hosts at another table, since dining with Hebrews was deeply offensive to them. The brothers were seated directly before him, arranged precisely by age, from the oldest down to the very youngest, leaving them staring at each other in absolute shock. Joseph sent plates over from his own table, but Benjamin received 5 times more food than the others. They ate and drank, laughing together in relief. Joseph, his true identity still hidden, was setting up one last psychological trap. He pulled his chief servant aside, pack their bags with all the food they can hold, and slip each man's silver back inside his sack. But in the youngest brother's bag, you must hide my personal silver cup right alongside his money. The servant carried out the plot without a word. As dawn broke, the brothers set off with their loaded animals, relieved to leave. They barely made it outside the city gates when Joseph ordered his steward ride after them immediately. "When you catch up, demand to know why they returned kindness with betrayal and stole the precious silver cup I drink from, the sacred cup he uses to divine the unseen. You have committed a terrible dark sin." The messenger overtook them, delivering the blow. The brothers froze in sheer terror, pleading, "Why does our master accuse us? We would never commit such a treacherous act. Look, we even returned the silver we previously found in our bags from Canaan. How could we steal gold or silver from your master's sacred estate?" If any of us is found harboring the cup, let him die. The rest of us will become your slaves." The steward agreed, but with a condition. Only the one carrying the stolen cup will be enslaved. The rest of you are free to walk away. In desperate haste, they threw their sacks to the dust. The search began with the eldest and ended with the youngest. Suddenly, the stolen silver cup gleamed in Benjamin's sack. They tore their clothes in agonizing despair, packed their beasts, and returned to the city. When Judah and his broken brothers stepped back inside Joseph's palace, the ruler was waiting. They collapsed to the floor in submission. Joseph demanded, "What terrible thing have you done? Did you think a master of mysteries could not divine the truth?" Judah cried out, "How can we speak, my lord? What words can we find? How can we prove our innocence? God has exposed our hidden shadows. We stand before you as your permanent captives, both we and the boy who held the cup." But Joseph refused, saying, "I could never do such a thing. Only the one with the stolen cup will remain as my slave. The rest of you may return in peace." Then Judah stepped forward, his heart burning with desperation. "Please, my lord, let your servant speak a word directly to you. Do not let your furious anger burn against me, though you rule with the absolute power of Pharaoh. You asked us if we had a father or another brother. We answered, we have an elderly father and a young child, born late in life. His brother is dead, leaving him as the only son left to his mother. Then you commanded us to bring him down so you could see him with your own eyes. We protested. The youth cannot leave his father. If he does, his father will die of grief. Yet you insisted, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you will never see my face again. So we returned to our father and repeated your warning. When he later begged us to go back and buy food, we told him we couldn't unless our youngest brother journeyed with us. We cannot face the master without him. Then our father cried out in agony, "You know my beloved wife bore me only 2 sons. One walked away into the wild and was torn to pieces by beasts. I have never seen him since. If you take this boy too, and any harm strikes him, you will send my grieving gray soul straight to the grave. Now if I return to my father without the boy knowing his fragile life is completely bound to his, he will die the moment he sees the boy is gone. We will drag our old father's gray hair down to the grave in absolute despair. For I pledged my own life to keep him safe, promising if I fail to return him, I will carry that heavy guilt before my father for the rest of my days. So now I beg you, let me stay here as your slave instead of the young boy, and let him return home with his brothers. How can I ever look my father in the eyes if the child is not with me? I cannot bear to watch my father perish in such agonizing grief." Finally, Joseph could no longer hide his breaking heart from his attendants. The crushing weight of years, of heavy silence, of hidden tears and buried truths shattered his composure. He wept aloud, his voice echoing through the massive hall. "Clear the room. Everyone must leave at once." The startled attendants retreated, leaving him alone to face his destiny. Who are we when the masks fall? Alone with his brothers, he revealed his true self. A primal cry escaped his lips, a sob so deep it echoed through the palace. The palace guards heard. Soon word reached Pharaoh's court that Joseph was weeping aloud. Turning to his terrified siblings, Joseph spoke words that shattered their very reality. "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But they stood paralyzed, unable to answer, their faces frozen in absolute shock. Guilt and terror gripped their souls. They were shattered in his powerful presence. "Come closer, please," Joseph pleaded. Slow and fearful, they stepped toward him. They were trembling. Then he spoke. "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into exile. Do not be consumed by anger or guilt for selling me. The Creator sent me ahead of you to preserve life. For 2 years, famine has scorched the earth, and 5 more years remain without plowing or harvest. But the Creator sent me ahead to protect a remnant on earth, saving your families with a miraculous rescue. It was not you who sent me here, but God, He has made me an advisor to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all Egypt. His eyes swelled again with tears now of pure healing grace. "Hurry," Joseph urged them. "Go quickly to my father. Tell him your son Joseph says, 'God has made me ruler of all Egypt. Come down to me immediately. You will live in the land of Goshen, close to me, you, your children, your grandchildren, and your flocks, your herds, and everything you own. There I will sustain you, because 5 more years of hunger lie ahead. Otherwise, your family will face complete ruin and destitution. Look at me. Your own eyes see as do the eyes of my brother Benjamin that I am truly speaking to you. Tell my father of my high honor here and of everything you have witnessed. Hurry, bring my father to me." Joseph could not hold back his emotion any longer. He embraced his brother Benjamin, weeping openly as Benjamin wept on his shoulder. Then Joseph kissed every one of them, shedding tears over each brother, until they finally found the courage to speak. News of this emotional reunion traveled fast. Pharaoh's palace soon heard, "Joseph's brothers have arrived." The king and his advisors were pleased. Pharaoh told Joseph, "Tell your brothers to load their beasts, return to the land of Canaan, and bring your father and families to me. I will give you the finest land in Egypt, and you will eat of the richest land. Take wagons from Egypt for your little ones and wives, and bring your father and come. Leave your old belongings behind. The absolute best of Egypt is yours." The sons of Jacob obeyed. Joseph provided the wagons just as Pharaoh had ordered, along with food for the road. To each brother he gave a change of clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 silver shekels and 5 changes of clothes. To his father he sent 10 donkeys packed with Egypt's finest treasures, along with 10 female donkeys carrying grain, bread, and provisions for his trip. As he sent them off, he gave a final warning. Do not argue on the road. So they traveled up from Egypt to Canaan, arriving at their father Jacob's home, saying, "Joseph is alive. He is actually the ruler of all the land of Egypt." Jacob's heart froze. The old man simply could not believe them. But as they repeated Joseph's words and he saw the wagons Joseph had sent to carry him back, the spirit of the old man revived. And Israel whispered, "It is enough. Reconciliation is real. Joseph is alive. I must go see him before I die." What happens when survival demands stepping into your deepest fears? Jacob packed his life and set out, leaving for the looming shadow of Egypt. At Beersheba, he paused to sacrifice to his father's God. In the dead of night, a mysterious voice shattered the silence, calling out to him twice. "Jacob, Jacob," he answered. "Here I am." Then the divine spoke to ease his terror. "I am the God of your father. Do not fear descending into Egypt, for there I will build your nation. I will go down with you, and I will surely bring you back up again, and your lost son Joseph will close your eyes." Strengthened by this promise, Jacob rose. They departed Beersheba, the sons of Israel, carrying their frail father, their wives, and their little ones in the royal wagons Pharaoh had sent. They drove their vast herds, carrying all they had built in Canaan. Together they descended into the unknown of Egypt. Jacob traveled with his children, his sons and his grandsons, his daughters and granddaughters, every soul belonging to his household. The ancient text pauses here, preserving the names of those who entered Egypt with Jacob. From Leah came Reuben the firstborn, with his sons Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. Simeon, with Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, son of a Canaanite woman. Levi, with Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And Judah, with Shelah, Perez, and Zerah, though and Onan had died in Canaan. From Perez came Hezron and Hamul. Issachar, with his sons Tola, Puvajob, and Shimron. And Zebulun, with Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. These were the sons of Leah, including their sister Dinah, totaling 33 souls. From Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, came Gad, with his sons Ziphion, Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. Then Asher with Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, Beriah, and their sister Sarah. Beriah's sons were Heber and Malchiel, making 16 in all. From Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, came Joseph and Benjamin. In Egypt, Joseph had Manasseh and Ephraim with Asenath, daughter of the priest of On. Benjamin's sons were Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ahi, Rosh Muppim, Huppim, and Ard. These children of Rachel totaled 14 souls. From Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, came Dan with his son Hushim, and Naphtali with Jazeel, Guni, Jezer, and Shillem, 7 in all. Together the entire household of Jacob, entering Egypt, excluding the wives of his sons, numbered 66 souls. With Joseph's 2 sons born in Egypt, the total was 70, completing the family preparing for exile. Jacob sent Judah ahead to guide them into Goshen. When they finally arrived there, Joseph readied his chariot and went up to meet his father. Seeing him, Joseph fell upon his neck and wept deeply. At last, Israel whispered, "Now I can die in peace, for I have seen your face and know you are alive." Then Joseph spoke to his brothers and his father's household, preparing them to stand before Pharaoh, declaring that they had come from Canaan as lifelong shepherds, keepers of flocks, bringing their herds and everything they owned. Joseph instructed them with care that when Pharaoh asked about their trade, they must claim to be keepers of livestock to secure their own land in Goshen, since Egypt despised all shepherds. Under a divine promise and Joseph's strategic wisdom, the family made their move. They descended into Egypt, where the chosen people would be preserved and tested, growing into a nation fulfilling the ancient covenant sworn to their fathers. Joseph entered the royal court, telling Pharaoh of his family's arrival, their flocks, their herds, and everything they brought from Canaan, and that they were now in Goshen. He chose 5 brothers and presented them to the ruler of Egypt. When Pharaoh asked about their trade, they embraced their true identity, remaining shepherds in a foreign empire. What happens when your homeland dies? They begged to dwell in Goshen, fleeing Canaan's terrible famine. With no pasture for starving herds, Pharaoh heard their desperate plea and agreed to Joseph's request. He offered the absolute best of Egypt, promising the fertile lands of Goshen for their survival. If there were strong, skilled men among them, Pharaoh offered them power over his own herds. They would guard the royal livestock. Soon Joseph brought his fragile father Jacob to meet the king. The old patriarch blessed the mighty ruler. Pharaoh looked at him and asked about his age. Jacob whispered that his hard journey had lasted 130 years, bitter and short compared to the vast lifetimes of his ancestors. He blessed Pharaoh once more and walked away. Joseph settled his family in Egypt's richest soil, the prime territory known back then as Ramses, just as Pharaoh ordered. He provided food for his father, brothers, and everyone in the entire household, feeding every single child. Meanwhile, the famine grew deeper and darker. The crisis gripped Egypt and Canaan, leaving people starving. Joseph collected all the money remaining in exchange for life-saving grain filling Pharaoh's treasury. But soon, the money completely ran out. The starving people begged Joseph for food. He told them to trade their valuable livestock. They traded horses, sheep, cattle, and donkeys. For 1 whole year, he kept them alive. When the year ended, they returned in despair. Nothing was left but their bare flesh and their empty fields. They begged to sell themselves for grain to survive the drought. So Joseph bought all of Egypt for Pharaoh. Starving men everywhere traded their ancestral lands just to eat. The crown owned everything, and the population was forced into crowded cities from one border to the other. Only the sacred temple lands remained untouched by Joseph, because the priests survived on royal rations. Joseph turned to the silent, submissive crowd. "I have purchased you and your land for Pharaoh. Take these seeds, plant them. When harvest arrives, give 1/5 to the crown. The rest is yours for food, seed, and survival, to feed your hungry families." They cried out with gratitude, "You saved us. We are grateful, and we will serve Pharaoh as his willing subjects." Joseph made this a permanent law across Egypt. 20% of all crops belonged to Pharaoh, except for the holy lands of the priests, which Pharaoh never owned. Meanwhile, Israel settled in fertile Goshen, thriving and growing massive in number. Jacob spent 17 years there, reaching a total age of 147. sensing his end was near, he summoned his son Joseph, demanding a solemn oath. "Do not bury my body here in Egypt, but carry me home to my ancestors." Joseph swore it, and the old patriarch bowed against his bed in deep worship, trusting completely that God's ancient promise would never fail. Later, hearing that his father was failing, Joseph rushed to his side with his 2 boys, Manasseh and Ephraim. The dying patriarch summoned his last strength and sat up, remembering how God Almighty appeared to him at Luz, blessing him with future descendants, a vast community of nations, and a permanent homeland for generations to come. He declared that Joseph's boys born here in exile before his arrival were now his own sons, equal to Reuben and Simeon, though future children would remain under Joseph's lineage. As he spoke, his mind drifted back to a heavy grief, remembering how his beloved Rachel died on the road and was buried near Bethlehem. Catching sight of the boys, Jacob asked who they were. Joseph answered, "These are my sons, given to me by God here in Egypt." Jacob asked him to bring them close for a blessing. Though nearly blind, the old man hugged and kissed them, amazed by this unexpected grace. He never expected to see Joseph again, let alone his grandchildren. Joseph bowed deeply, and then, "Why do we fight the hands of destiny?" Joseph guided his sons, placing Manasseh toward Israel's right hand, and Ephraim toward his left, expecting the elder to be blessed. But Israel crossed his frail arms, placing his right hand on the younger brother and his left on the eldest. He spoke a blessing over Joseph, invoking the God of his fathers Abraham and Isaac, the divine shepherd who guided his entire journey and the angel who saved him from darkness. He prayed they would carry his name forward, inheriting the profound legacy of their ancestors, multiplying across the earth. But Joseph watched with rising panic, uneasy with his father's choice of placing his right hand on the younger boy, trying to push it toward the firstborn, Manasseh. But the old prophet refused, whispering that while both would prosper, the younger would rise higher and spawn an entire empire. With that quiet act, he placed Ephraim before his brother. He sealed their destiny that afternoon, declaring their names would forever be a source of favor, invoking the phrase, "May God make you like Ephraim." Then, facing death, he turned to Joseph, promising that heaven would lead their people back home. He then gifted Joseph an extra inheritance, a rugged mountain ridge he had personally won from the Amorites with his own sword. As his final moments approached, the dying patriarch gathered his 12 sons around him, demanding they listen closely to the secrets of what would happen to their descendants in the distant future. His words hung heavy, blending ancestral power with piercing truth, revealing a map of their spiritual destiny. He looked at Reuben, his eldest, remembering his early strength and the high honor he deserved. But his voice turned to grief, warning that Reuben would never truly lead, because his chaotic desires had betrayed his family. Then he glared at Simeon and Levi, twins bound by a dark history of bloodshed. Their fury had been untamed, their vengeance merciless, meaning their tribes would be broken and scattered across the nation. But when Jacob turned to Judah, the atmosphere shifted to pure royal promise. Judah would conquer his foes and earn total respect, resting like a fierce lion no one dared to wake. The ultimate crown would belong to his bloodline until the true king arrived, demanding the ultimate and absolute loyalty of all nations. He painted a striking picture of royalty and immense wealth, overflowing with rich wine and pure milk. Zebulun would settle along the roaring coastlines, building harbors that stretched toward Sidon. Issachar was cast as a sturdy beast of burden, trading his freedom for comfortable slavery. Dan would govern with wisdom, yet remain dangerous, a strike-first viper hiding along the trail, biting the heels of his enemies to send them crashing down. In that tense moment, Jacob gasped, whispering a sudden prayer. "I wait for your rescue, Lord." Gad would face relentless attacks, but fight back to claim ultimate victory. Asher's soil would produce a feast fit for royalty, while Naphtali ran wild like a deer, speaking beautiful truths. But for Joseph, the old man saved his deepest affection. Joseph was a blooming branch by a hidden spring, scaling walls despite vicious attacks. His bow stayed steady because the mighty hand of God held him fast. The ancient rock of Israel offering him treasures from heaven and the deep. Endless growth and prosperity would cover his head, exceeding all previous generations. The crowning glory belonged to the son who was once abandoned by his own. Lastly, he called Benjamin a hungry wolf, hunting prey in the morning, and tearing apart his spoils at dusk. In this way, Jacob read each of their hearts, mapping out the complex spiritual blueprint that would forever shape the 12 tribes of Israel. His work finished, he left a legacy that still speaks directly to us, asking to rest with his ancestors inside the dark cave of Machpelah near Mamre, where Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah and Leah already slept. With his final words spoken, he pulled his feet up onto the bed, took his last breath, and joined his ancestors. Joseph collapsed over his father, weeping bitterly and kissing him in deep grief. The old patriarch was embalmed by Egyptian doctors, and the whole empire mourned him for 70 days. Under royal decree, Joseph led a massive caravan of family and Egyptian nobles back to the dry hills of Canaan to lay Jacob to rest in that ancient family tomb beside Abraham and Isaac. This grief was so intense, the locals named the ground Abel Mitzrayim, meaning the mourning of Egypt. Back in Egypt, the brothers felt the old panic rise, still haunted by their ancient guilt, fearing Joseph's revenge. They sent a message begging for mercy in their dead father's name, then threw themselves at his feet, offering their lives. But Joseph spoke gently to them. "Do not be afraid. You planned evil against me, but God turned it to good, saving many human lives." With those healing words, he promised to protect them and care for their families. Joseph remained in Egypt with his household, living to 110 years, long enough to see his great-grandchildren play. But as his own end drew near, he reminded his brothers of the sacred promise God made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He swore that God would rescue them, guiding his people home to the land of their promise. So Joseph made them swear an oath. "Carry my bones with you when you finally leave." When he died, they embalmed him and laid him in a coffin, waiting for that promised exodus. And so the book of Genesis ends, not with a promise fulfilled, but with a quiet hope pointing toward a much larger mystery yet to be written. Soon, as the book of Exodus begins, we will watch this small family grow into a nation, only to be crushed under Pharaoh's heavy hand. But from that dark bondage, a Savior rises, and a divine power will guide them back toward the sacred ground of their ancestors. If this journey through Genesis spoke to you, make sure to hit that like button and share it with anyone searching for the deeper truths hidden in these ancient stories. Join us in our next episode as we step into the book of Exodus, the ultimate story of liberation. We will see you there.